Xiaolei watched as Emo walked off and felt lost. She knew that this man didn't belong to her. Although she knew this man was very excellent, but what use was that? Xiaolei watched as Emo walked off and felt lost. She knew that this man didn't belong to her. Although she knew this man was very excellent, but what use was that? Emo felt the direction that the frost chi flowed and chased up without hesitation. He was thinking whether or not Nye Shuangshuang did this. After all, not long ago, he saw Nye Shuangshuang. And the bleakness he felt in Xiao Lei's body was very similar to the bleakness in Zhuo Yangqing. An hour later, the sun had fallen completely. Emo found his target in an empty patch of land. It was a man in his 40s. His face was very long and his bleak chi was even more dense than Ye Wubian. He wore white clothes and stood in the barren land in the middle of the night like a ghost. Not Nye Shuangshuang? Just when Emo was thinking, he saw Nye Shuangshuang walk over. She was also here as well, but was outside of his spirit sense range before. Shuangshuang, give me the thing, then I won't take your life. The man saw Nye Shuangshuang and his face calmed down a little and said softly. But his voice wasn't soft and was very sharp instead. Nye Shuangshuang sneered. Nye Pai, stop dreaming. My Luan has been robbed. Even if it's still here, I won't give it to you. Under the night sky, Nye Shuangshuang's pale face seemed paler under the moonlight. Nye Shuangshuang, you will give it to me today no matter what. If I didn't see you at Beijing this time, I would have thought you were cultivating the same cultivation method as the 9-moon method. But now, I understand that you switched secretly. Don't think I can't tell that you're a virgin? If you cultivate our way, you can remain a virgin. The long-faced man sneered and seemed vicious as he glared at Nye Shuangshuang's pale face. Seeing that Nye Shuangshuang shut her mouth tightly and didn't say anything, he sneered. I'll give you an option. Give me the thing, and also give me your red pill. Other than that, stay with me for a year. I can keep this secret for you. Otherwise, don't blame me. Emo frowned as he listened. He didn't understand a sentence of it. But he saw Nye Shuangshuang kill the 2 men at the drunk eye bar with his own eyes and pulled her skirt open. He definitely wouldn't believe that Nye Shuangshuang was a virgin. But from this man's words, Nye Shuangshuang really was a virgin. How could this be? I can give it to you. Nye Shuangshuang walked a few steps forward and was going to pull off her clothes again. The long-faced man smiled and didn't move. When Nye Shuangshuang finished that sentence, 2 bright beams of light suddenly shot out of her clothes like laser towards the man's forehead and throat. Emo immediately recognized the 2 beams. It was the 2 long needles he saw Nye Shuangshuang use to kill. Nye Shuangshuang could actually use them as projectiles to take this man by surprise. It could be seen that she spent a lot of efforts on that. But Emo knew that Nye Shuangshuang was wasting her effort because this man was Earth level and Nye Shuangshuang wasn't even Yellow level middle stage. There was no way she could take out an Earth level by surprise. As expected, the man just waved his hand and the 2 needles fell into his hands. He played with the needles and said plainly, Shuangshuang, don't play your little tricks in front of your big martial brother. Wubian and Red Robes have been killed. Before Red Robes died, she sent the message that the person who killed her was the person who killed Wubian. I investigated. He's called Emo. You should know him, right? Seeing Nye Shuangshuang still refusing to talk, the man sneered. Take me to find Emo. I will let him understand that no one can kill our 9-moon sect's disciples. Then, sleep with me for a year or so and perhaps I'll let you go. You want me to help you find Emo? Keep dreaming. You shemale want woman? Are you even able? You want woman. Wait for your next life. Nye Shuangshuang stared coldly at this man. Her eyes were full of anger and ridicule. You're asking for it. This man suddenly jumped up and kicked onto Nye Shuangshuang's chest. Nye Shuangshuang flew out more than 10 meters and spat blood in the air. Then, she fell to the ground and could no longer move. Emo knew that Nye Shuangshuang probably wasn't going to live after that kick. Just when he wanted to go over, this man seemed to have noticed something and suddenly sprung up and was about to dart away. Emo dazed. He thought that since this man was looking for him, he wouldn't run away even when he came. Otherwise, why would this man still be looking for him? However, this man was trying to escape, and he wouldn't let that happen. The purple flying sword caught up to the man rapidly and turned into a purple death ray. Yimo wanted to slice off his legs as he still needed to ask the man some questions. The man's legs were cut off, but he didn't stop. He flew out a few more meters and fell into the Yin River. Blood spread across the surface of the river and quickly disappeared. Yimo followed out with his spirit sense, but he didn't find any trace of the man. Looking at the two legs, Yimo frowned and thought he was too careless. He didn't expect this guy to be this good at running. But luckily he cut off his legs. Yimo followed along the river and still had no leads. So, he could only return to the place where the fight took place. On the ground, dark red blood seeped out from the two legs. Yimo burned them casually with a fireball, but he was thinking, this Nine Moon sect really had a whole spectrum of arts. Yimo was sure that with the way Nyapai was running, even Tanjiao wasn't able to catch up to him, much less normal Earth levels. If Yimo wasn't careless at the start, the man wouldn't have gotten away for sure, but he used Yimo's carelessness to escape despite losing his legs. Yimo went by Nye Shuang and scanned his spirit sense. He was sure that if he didn't rescue her, she would be dead for sure. Her internal injuries were too severe. Yimo shook his head. Although he didn't know the exact locations of the Nine Moon sect, he was sure he could find it. There was no need to ask Nye Shuang. Since she was going to die, then let her be. Yimo turned around. Although he didn't want to save Nye Shuang, he didn't want to watch her die either. The best thing to do was pretend he didn't see anything. Wait, Nye Shuang's voice was so weak that it almost couldn't be heard. She seemed to have seen someone in front of her. Although the figure was very blurry, she was sure it wasn't her big martial brother Nyapai. But now, she didn't want to think who this person was. Yimo looked coldly at Nye Shuang and didn't speak. Nye Shuang didn't even look up and took out a letter and gave it to Yimo. Please give this to Yimo. Tell him, the Nine Moon sect people want to kill him. Tell him to run. Nye Shuang didn't even finish and suddenly spouted out more blood and then banged her head back on the ground. Her hands slunk down powerlessly and the letter became red in her hands. Yimo took the letter with surprise. He glanced at the unconscious Nye Shuang and opened the letter. Yimo, sorry that I hid things from you. I thought about things later, and I'm sure that you're an ancient martial arts cultivator. I'm actually also an ancient marital arts cultivator, but the sect I came from is the Nine Moon sect. Because the cultivation methods they practice are so evil, the outer hidden sects do not allow the Nine Moon sect to join them. So now, despite being a lot stronger than many outer hidden sects, the Nine Moon sect can only be called semi-hidden sect. You will ask me, why would I treat you differently after only seeing you twice? It's because you have this chi on you that will dissipate this killing intent on me and also reduce the bleak poison in my body. Although I came from the Nine Moon sect, I didn't cultivate their cultivation method, but no one knew that. It's because I have a pet called Luan. Luan can cultivate the Nine Moon sect cultivation method. It needs to digest the spirit and yin chi of dead people. And he can also change into anything. So usually, I put him in a pocket because if my master knew that I didn't cultivate the Nine Moon sect way, I would be killed immediately. But as Luan got stronger and stronger, I could no longer control it. I felt it would usurp me at any time, and I'm also feeling a stronger and stronger desire for blood. I'm very scared. I felt the bleak and poisonous chi on me was getting denser and denser. Perhaps eventually, without Luan to consume me, I would be already dead. But then later, I met you. Standing by you, I felt you were different to other ancient martial artists. Your chi could make me give up the urge to kill and dispel the bleak chi on me. I invited you to a date. This was the first time I genuinely dated a man. But in your eyes, I saw disgust and hatred. I hated myself. I was very sad. After leaving you, I cried for a week. Then, I chose to leave Beijing. I tried to control myself from killing for no reason because I don't want to see the disgust in your eyes. Because I stopped killing people, I finally couldn't control Luan. Luan left, but it remembered that I fed it and raised him, so it didn't devour me. Luan left. I fell sick. Although it didn't devour me, I was heavily invaded by the bleak chi since I kept Luan without cultivating the Nine Moon sect way before. I knew my life was at an end. I didn't go find Luan, neither did I dare to return to the Nine Moon sect. So, I came back to Beijing again. I wanted to see you, even just once. So, I often sat at Drunk Eye Bar waiting for you, waiting for a miracle. The letter was unfinished. It just ended there. Yemo saw the unfinished letter and sighed. No wonder Nye Shuang said she was still a virgin. It was because she saw the disgust in his eyes. She said that just to prove something. Yemo saw the unfinished letter and sighed. No wonder Nye Shuang said she was still a virgin. It was because she saw the disgust in his eyes. She said that just to prove something. No wonder when he first saw her, she had this bleak and strange chi on her. It was her pet, a pet that devoured spirits. If her pet just devoured a male soul and hadn't fully digested it, then she would have that strange chi indeed. It seemed that everything you saw wasn't always true. When he saw her pull open her skirt, it was just her letting out her pet to devour spirits. There was actually such a thing that could change into something like the environment and ascend through devouring human spirits. If this thing was in the cultivation realm, it would be fought over by countless people, but on Earth, it was a disaster. Yemo looked at the unconscious Nye Shuang as his heart battled intensely over whether or not to save her life. Never mind, he still had 3 Lotus Life pills anyways. Seeing that you risked your life to notify me about the 9 Moon sect, I'll feed you one. As for whether you live or die, that will depend on your luck. Yemo took out a Lotus Life pill and put it in her mouth. The pill immediately melted and flowed into Nye Shuang's body. After feeding, Yemo didn't want to waste time here. He got on his flying sword and flew towards Chun'an like a comet. He knew that tonight, there would be a slaughterfest at Chun'an. When Yemo got back to Chun'an, it was already almost 10 p.m. He felt that he was about to grasp something but couldn't. It was Nye Shuang's letter. There seemed to be some information he needed inside, but he couldn't find what it was. Yemo returned to his living place. The building was still quite dead. Other than the elderly on the 1st and 2nd floor, the 3rd floor and above was dead silent. Because he didn't see Luo Xian, Yemo wanted to find her. It was for that golden paper. Now, he had the latter half of the Nye Luo Sutra, but the former half wasn't found. But before he went to look for Luo Xian, Yemo still needed to go to the Hua family. Just then, when he walked to his place, he purposely slowed down but didn't see anyone come to stop him. According to Hong Xi's words, they should be ambushing him at Chun'an. How come there wasn't any? When Yemo came to the Hua family, he immediately understood why. Hua Kuming had left and Hua Kei was nowhere to be seen. Yemo scanned his spirit sense in the library, and many of the books were carried away. Although he was quite annoyed by this old guy Hua Kuming, he wasn't angry to the extent that he was going to kill Hua Kuming's family. Plus, although Hua Kuming wanted to kill him, he didn't do anything yet. Regardless of whether or not he acted on a tip-off, since he didn't attack, Yemo wouldn't waste time to kill him. There wasn't too much feud between them. Hua Kuming wasn't here, and he wasn't ambushed. Yemo immediately knew that news of him killing 4 Earth levels must have been leaked to the people who were going to ambush him. Yemo didn't care too much about these people running, but one of the He Lu sect Elder Yu ran away, and he wasn't quite happy about that. After all, this man was on his must-kill list. As long as it was the He Lu sect, he wanted to kill. But Yemo also knew that it was very hard for these people to not know the news. Yemo felt quite unsatisfied, but could only let it go like that. He was prepared to meet Luo Xian later, and then go to the He Lu sect. He couldn't let the He Lu sect people retreat. He must remove out the source of the trouble. In Hua Temple, although it was quite old and shattered, it had a long history. When Yemo came to the outskirts of the temple, he didn't find anyone with his spirit sense. He only smelled blood. He quickly walked in. There was no one inside the temple, but there was blood everywhere on the ground, and the range wasn't small. The blood seemed quite fresh, meaning there was killing here not long ago. Did something happen to Luo Xian? When Yemo thought about Luo Xian, the first thought actually wasn't that she had the golden paper he needed, but when she patted her chest and said she wasn't afraid of ghosts, when she hung the peachwood sword outside his room in the middle of the night. Then, he thought about if she had that golden paper on her. Yemo looked around carefully. Outside, there were messy footsteps. From the amount of footsteps, it seemed there weren't many people here, only about 4 to 5. Yemo confirmed again, it was 4. If one pair was Luo Xian's, then other than Luo Xian, 3 other people also came here. Yemo suddenly felt impetuous. If it wasn't for following Ye Shuang, perhaps he would have came here when the incident hadn't occurred. Yemo circled around a few times outside and eventually saw the footprints of 2 people. It seemed that other than the 4, more people came. But they came and left quickly. Yemo was sure that other than those, there were no more marks. He looked back disappointedly. It seemed that he didn't have luck with that golden paper. Whether Luo Xian was dead or alive, it would depend on her fortune. Yemo went back to his place. The building was still dead and lifeless. Yemo walked in front of Luo Xian's door and subconsciously reached in with his spirit sense. It was empty indeed. Luo Xian wasn't back. Then, he went back to his place. Yemo closed the door and habitually scanned the room with his spirit sense. Luo Xian was curled up around his bed, shaking like a lamb. Luo Xian, what happened to you? Yemo walked over and asked Luo Xian in surprise. Luo Xian, who usually wasn't afraid of ghosts, saw Yemo now and could no longer hold in her cries. Yemo looked at Luo Xian and saw that she was injured but not very serious. And it was getting better. It seemed that she had eaten some pills. Stand up first and tell me what's wrong? Yemo asked again. Luo Xian sniffed for a moment and stood up and then said, I found the Inai Luo Sutra at Chunin Uni and waited for you till 8 p.m. You still hadn't come back, so I went to the Yinghua Temple. When I arrived, there was only my second martial sister, Luo Fei, there. I talked with her for a while, and she said she wanted to go see if big martial sister had returned, so she went out. Yemo took out a bottle of water from his ring and gave it to Luo Xian. Luo Xian didn't notice where Yemo took it out from and just took it over and drank the water. Then, she continued, after a while, my big martial sister came. I told her I found the Inai Luo Sutra and took out the 2 parts and showed her. She was very happy and excited. I asked her if she had seen second martial sister, and she said she hadn't. I thought that second martial sister just went out. How could she not see? Just when I wanted to go see, I heard this cry of pain outside. It seemed to be my second martial sister's. I rushed out quickly, but my big martial sister was faster than me. As soon as she heard the sound, she charged out. But she immediately came back inside the temple. There was blood all over her chest. In that short moment, she was ambushed. Speaking till here, Luo Xian cried again. Yemo frowned. He felt this thing was strange. If someone was really going to ambush Luo Xian, then wouldn't it be the perfect time to strike when her second martial sister had already left and her big martial sister hadn't come yet? Then, I helped my big martial sister up. I wanted to help her stop the bleeding, but she couldn't hold on. She told me to go immediately. I said second martial sister wasn't back yet. Big martial sister just told me to go immediately. I listened to her, but when I turned around to take away the Inai Luo Sutra I put on the side, I noticed that it was gone. Luo Xian kept sniffing. Yemo patted her shoulders and said, Don't worry, keep talking. Luo Xian truly felt helpless now. Usually, it was her big martial sister deciding for her, but now, she felt very lost. Yemo's comfort calmed her a lot. She nodded and continued, I was shocked to see the Inai Luo Sutra disappear, and just when I wanted to turn around, someone hid behind me, palmed my back. I spat out blood, and it spilled on big martial sister's face. She suddenly woke up and yelled, pulling me to charge out from the back of Yinghua Temple. She was very fast, and I seemed to have heard a lot of noises from behind. Those people for some reason didn't keep chasing. Big martial sister took me and ran a few miles before falling unconscious to the ground. I remembered that lotus life pill you gave me, and I gave it to my big martial sister. Then, I carried my big martial sister and ran in a different direction. After 7 kilometers, when I couldn't run anymore, I put my big martial sister down. Yemo nodded. Although from Luo Xian's description, her big martial sister was heavily wounded. If she ate his lotus life pill, she should be fine. So, he asked again, since you came back, where's your big martial sister? Luo Xian cried out once again. After a moment, she said, when big martial sister woke up, she said that the pill I gave her was very good. She felt a lot better and should be fine. But then, she said we should go separately. She told me to go meet her a year later at Luozong. In the meantime, We must not have any contacts at all, and she threw away our phones? Luo Xian cried out once again. After a moment, she said, when Big Marshall's sister woke up, she said that the pill I gave her was very good. She felt a lot better and should be fine. But then, she said we should go separately. She told me to go meet her a year later at Luozong. In the meantime, we must not have any contacts at all, and she threw away our phones. Yimo suddenly understood something. He looked at Luo Xian and said, "Can you show me your wound on your back?" Huh. Luo Xian stopped crying and looked at Yimo in surprise. Checking the wound on her back, didn't that mean she had to take off her top? Yimo also realized it wasn't very appropriate after saying it. He subconsciously didn't even think about this because he really didn't have any intentions for a loli like Luo Xian. Since it's inconvenient, then never mind, Yimo quickly said. Luo Xian shook her head. There's nothing inconvenient, you brother. I trust you. There must be a reason you want to see it. I'll show you. Then Luo Xian took off her top. On her smooth and silky skin, there was a red palm print. Although Yimo didn't think of anything, he still felt his face getting a little warmer when he saw Luo Xian's round breast in her bra and her slender supple waist. The faint smell of a virgin came from Luo Xian's body, making Yimo's throat dry. He quickly said, "It's done." At this moment, Luo Xian's face was also burning a little, but as soon as she put her clothes back on, Yimo asked, "What else did your big martial sister say?" Luo Xian came back to her sense and sniffed. "I said second martial sister hasn't come back. What do we do?" Big martial sister stayed silent for a long time before saying, "Second martial sister is very smart. She should be fine. She told me to leave Chunin immediately and don't show my face, nor go look for her or try to go back to the sect. At the same time, she said not to believe anyone. She even said not to trust her. Yi brother, why are things like this?" Yimo had understood now. He sighed. "When you first came to Yinghua Temple and you saw your second martial sister, did you tell her that you got the Ni Luo Sutra?" Luo Xian wasn't dumb. She dazed upon Yimo's question, but soon her face went red. "Yi brother, you're suspecting my second martial sister? She definitely isn't that sort of person. We're like sisters. I'm sure she isn't this type of person." Before she finished, Luo Xian stopped. She had understood that not only was Yimo suspecting her second martial sister, but her big martial sister was also suspecting her second martial sister. It was just that the big martial sister didn't want to accept this fact. That's why she told Luo Xian not to even trust her own words, implying that Luo Xian shouldn't trust second martial sister's words either. It was because big martial sister didn't want to accept this reality and wasn't completely certain that the second martial sister was responsible for this. Luo Xian's eyes suddenly showed extreme sadness and disappointment. She didn't want to accept the reality that her second martial sister wanted to kill her and her big martial sister. She could only murmur, "No, this isn't real." Yimo sneered, "I don't know if it's real or not. Your second martial sister went to find your big martial sister, and it was just outside the Yinghua Temple. How could she disappear? And I'm sure that your second martial sister wasn't going to find your big martial sister as soon as you came. It was after you said you found the Ni Luo Sutra, right? And do you know what wound is on your back? It's a palm print, a woman's palm print." Luo Xian could no longer hold the melancholy in her heart, and tears dripped down. She had never thought that the sister-like second martial sister would try to kill her. Before, they were all living together. Why were things like this? Yimo didn't mind Luo Xian's state at all and continued. "It's because your big martial sister guessed this, then she told you to leave and even carried you out 7 kilometers and asked you to run away by yourself. If it wasn't that Lotus Life pill, your big martial sister would be dead for sure. But since big martial sister survived, why did she still leave me?" Luo Xian sniffed. She really didn't want to know these were real. It's because she was marked. If she stayed with you, you would die as well. And if you haven't suddenly reached black level primary stage peak, then that palm would have already killed you. So, the person ambushing you knew your power and was sure that palm could kill you. But she didn't expect you reached black level, and that palm actually didn't kill you. So, in this person's calculations, you and your big martial sister were both killed, but your power and Lotus Life pills saved your lives unexpectedly. Yimo said plainly, as though he had seen everything with his own eyes. Luo Xian was already very smart. and after Yemo's reminder, she put together all the things. Things were indeed as Yemo said. She was dumbfounded, but she soon worriedly grabbed Yemo's arm. "Ye brother, quickly save my big martial sister. I know you're strong. She has been marked. What do we do?" Yemo smiled. "Luo Xian, don't worry. The reason your big sister was marked was because she knew the person who ambushed her had poison on the sword. That person could track your big martial sister by the poison. However, he didn't expect that my Lotus Life pill can erase any poison in a very short time. So, you don't need to worry about her. Your second martial sister won't be able to find her." Luo Xian's hanging heart finally fell, but thinking about second martial sister's ruthlessness, she couldn't help to cry again. "You don't need to cry. Your second martial sister won't be able to find you and your big martial sister's bodies. Then they will look around everywhere for you too. You should think about how to escape from your second martial sister's hunt." Yemo glanced at Luo Xian and said, "You actually dare to come back here? I'm sure that your second martial sister will be able to find here soon." Luo Xian rubbed her eyes. "I don't dare to go back to school, and if I leave Chunin, I don't know anyone. I only know you and Ziyun. Ziyun is an ordinary person. I don't want to harm her, so I could only come back and wait for you here. I was thinking if you don't come back, I would go to Flowing Snake to find Su brother. I have nowhere to go." Yemo suddenly thought, it wasn't right. If Luo Xian's second sister was coming for Luo Xian, then should have found this place ages ago. Did something happen in between? He looked at Luo Xian and said, "Since you came back, why don't you go back to your own room? Why are you in my place?" Luo Xian opened her mouth and hesitated for a long time before saying, "That elevator is going up automatically. I don't dare to stay in my room, so I hid next to your bed waiting for you to come back." Then, Luo Xian looked worriedly at Yemo and found that Yemo didn't blame her. She relaxed a little and immediately flipped open the quilt on Yemo's bed. Soon, she pulled out a yellow paper from under the quilt and gave it to Yemo. "This is the paper I took from the upper half of the Inai Luo Sutra. Here." Yemo took the paper in joy. He didn't expect Luo Xian to take the thing out first and hid it under his quilt. He immediately burned the yellow cover, showing a golden paper. Yemo stared at this paper for a long time before saying to Luo Xian, "Thank you very much, Luo Xian." Seeing Yemo being so delighted, Luo Xian finally showed a little smile. She felt that was the most correct thing she did. The first thing she did after getting the Inai Luo Sutra was to put this paper in Yemo's room and then go see her two martial sisters. "You saved my big martial sister, and this is something I should do," Luo Xian said. Yemo checked this golden paper repeatedly and then took out a cloth, wrapping it carefully and putting it back in his ring. Then, he said, "Not bad. You helped me out a lot this time. Okay, since you have nowhere to go, then follow me for now. After I'm done with my things, I'll send you back to your sect." "But if they really did it, wouldn't they be waiting for us on the way? Big martial sister told me not to go back no matter what." And, Luo Xian said hesitantly. Yemo laughed pridefully. "They can stop other people, but no one can stop where Yemo, want to go. After I'm finished with the thing here tonight, come with me to Qiyang Mountain tomorrow, and then I'll send you back." Luo Xian shook her head and said, "I don't want to. Even if you can send me back, I still need to find my big martial sister, otherwise I can't rest easy." "And why are you going to Qiyang Mountain?" "Of course, to annihilate the He Lu sect." "What? If you're scared, wait for me here," Yemo said with a smile. He knew that Luo Xian wouldn't dare to wait for him here by himself. As expected, Luo Xian said, "I'm not staying here. I'll go with you. I'm also black level now. Perhaps I can help you a little." "Okay, in that case, let's go upstairs first." Yemo nodded and said, "Why are we going up there?" Luo Xian immediately looked vigilant. Yemo smiled plainly and said, "Of course we're going to annihilate the ghost." Huh. Luo Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, "But that ghost is too strong. My master said I have spirit eyes, but even I can't see it, and was hurt by it. I think, we shouldn't go up." Huh. Luo Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, "But that ghost is too strong. My master said I have spirit eyes, but even I can't see it, and was hurt by it. I think, we shouldn't go up." Emo smiled. Okay, then wait for me here. I'll go up and capture it, then come down. I think I should go up with you. One extra person, one extra share of power. Luo Xian immediately changed her words. If Emo wasn't coming back, she really didn't want to stay here. She wasn't afraid of ghosts, but it was another thing when she couldn't even see the ghost. And that ghost didn't even seem to be scared of the Peachwood sword. Don't worry. I have a good idea of what it is. I'm just going to confirm. If I'm right, that ghost had left. I'm just going to see again in the elevator. Emo smiled and comforted Luo Xian. He really did guess what that thing was. After seeing Nie Shuangshuang's letter, Emo guessed that thing might be the pet she had before, Luan Luan. Because Luan Luan could camouflage, she changed into the same color as the elevator and stuck to one corner of it. People wouldn't be able to notice it at all. After he saw Nie Shuangshuang's letter, he thought of this Luan Luan. And, when he checked the elevator before, there was one part of it that did seem to protrude, but he didn't take note of it. Now that he thought of it, it was probably that thing. Now, he was just going to confirm it. As for why Luan Luan would come here, Emo guessed that it was probably related to the red-robed woman he killed. After Luan Luan escaped, it needed to devour spirits. Since the red-robed woman was here, the Yin-Chi here was very strong and attracted Luan Luan. Perhaps that red-robed woman wanted to capture it. Of course, it might be the other way around. After Luan Luan came, the red-robed woman was attracted by it. Yi brother, do you really know what it is? Is it not a ghost? Luo Xian asked in surprise. No, this thing is much scarier than ghosts. Yi Mo nodded. The elevator stopped on the 8th floor and Yi Mo and Luo Xian went in. Yi Mo pressed the button for the 12th floor and kept an eye on the surrounding walls. As expected, he noticed some faint Yin-Chi next to the buttons. Yi Mo knew this was where the thing attached to, and because it hadn't left too long ago, there were still Yin-Chi attached to it. Did you find it? When Luo Xian asked, the elevator had stopped at the 12th floor. Obviously, she was very anxious and didn't even notice that she was grabbing onto Yi Mo's sleeve. Yi Mo stepped out of the elevator and said, Yes, I found it, but it probably have left. It's a very vicious thing. It feasts on bleak and evil chi, and it's murderous. Originally, there were ghosts here, but after I killed them, it couldn't stay and left. Luo Xian seemed to have understood something and asked, You killed them? I was pushed out by a very strong ghost that day on the 9th floor. Did you kill that? No wonder I didn't see it again when I went up again. Yi Mo jumped onto the top of the building and once again felt the light breathe. He exclaimed. He had only been here a bit more than a year, but during this time, too much had happened. Luo Xian also followed up to the top and relaxed down. She saw Yi Mo standing there in silence and walked by his side and asked, Yi brother, what are you thinking about? I'm thinking. Yi Mo hesitated before saying, Luo Xian, if one day you really like a man, would you forget about him if you lost your memory? Huh. Luo Xian felt caught off guard. She blushed and immediately said, Yi brother, what are you saying? I'm a Dao cultivator. Why would I suddenly like a man? Yi Mo nodded subconsciously. That's right. You're a Dao cultivator. My question was too abrupt. Yi Mo looked into the distant stars and lights and was lost in thought. Luo Xian looked at Yi Mo's despaired face and dazed eyes and didn't talk. She just stood at the top of the building with Yi Mo, looking out into the distant lights. After a long while, she found that Yi Mo was still in that position and asked worriedly, Yi brother, did you lose your love? I don't really understand these things, but I've been in the uni for 2 years. I've seen quite some students who have lost their love. They seemed really sad, MHM, a bit like you. Lost love? Yi Mo murmured. Did he? Then he shook his head. I don't know. Yi Mo suddenly thought of something and looked at Luo Xian and asked, By the way, you said you're a Dao cultivator. What sect are you from? Luo Xian hesitated for a brief moment but didn't hide it. My sect is called Ci Hang Jing Monastery. It's a very ancient sect in China. Ci Hang Jing Monastery? Why does it seem familiar? Yi Mo repeated and immediately remembered that at that social night, he saw a stall called Ci Hang Jing Monastery. He didn't know if the two were connected. But Luo Xian said slowly, If you have heard this name, it's very normal because long ago, The Ci Jing monastery was outside and wasn't in the small world. Sects going into the small world were only in the recent few centuries. I don't know the specifics too well, but that Nai Luo Sutra is a very important book our sect left outside. Yemo nodded and fell silent. He didn't ask more. He didn't care about that too much. He believed that although there were things in this world that could threaten him, there wasn't much. Seeing Yemo falling into silence again, Luo Xin asked, "Yi brother, I know you're a great person. What is your dream?" Dream? Yemo frowned. His dream was, of course, to reach long life with Luoying and stay together forever, or even ascend to an immortal, but now, he knew that was an absurd dream. Although he had started his company and was prepared to use that to gather wealth for him and Luoying to cultivate, he knew that he would be hugely lucky if he even reached foundation establishment. What about Luoying and Qingxue? If he didn't meet Qingxue or have that much connections, then he wouldn't care. But now, even if he found Luoying and stayed with her, could he really let Qingxue go in his heart? It was this hard for him. Perhaps his mind state still needed ascension. After long, Yemo sighed. My dream is very hard to realize. Luo Xin looked sympathetically at Yemo. Although she didn't know what Yemo's dream was, but it must be related to the girl that lost her memory he mentioned before. She sighed, Yi brother, sometimes we don't need to think too much. Before, I was cultivating in my sect. I was very innocent, but coming out to this world, I realized there were so many unfathomable things outside. I think that if we were still in our sect, my second martial sister wouldn't do such thing for sure. She was tricked. She was tricked for sure. Talking about her second sister, Luo Xin's mood fell despondent again. Yemo smiled. If your second sister is really as what you think she is, then she wouldn't be tricked. Never mind. You should stop thinking about your second martial sister. You still haven't said what your dream is. Luo Xin said slowly. Before, my dream was to cultivate diligently and reach the highest, great heaven state. That day when I stood at the top of this building, I suddenly thought, if only I could fly one day. Perhaps that is my dream. I think my dream would never be realized because I know that's impossible. So, you brother, dream and reality are two different things. Even if it can't be realized, it's good to think about it frequently, just like me now. I'm standing here imagining that I'm flying and I feel a lot better. Yemo shook his head. Luo Xin, perhaps your dream can be realized, but my dream can be never realized. Are you talking about taking the plane? I've taken it before, but it feels no different to riding a car. I don't like that way of flying. Luo Xin shook her head. Let's stop talking about these. I'm going to Qiyang Mountain. Come with me. Yemo cast aside those thoughts and said, Of course, from now on, wherever ye brother goes, I will follow. Luo Xin said without hesitation. Her big martial sister wasn't here, and she couldn't live here by herself. Yemo shook his head, however, and didn't talk. What's wrong, ye brother? Luo Xin immediately asked. Yemo smiled and said, I'll say something, but don't reply casually. If I jump off the building, will you jump off with me? So, of course, if ye brother is going to jump off the building, I will jump off with you. But I know, ye brother, you won't. Before Luo Xin finished, Yemo had already jumped off. Huh. Luo Xin's mind went blank. She didn't expect Yemo would really jump off. She thought Yemo was joking. Why is it like this? Luo Xin's mind went blank. There was only one sentence in her mind. Don't reply casually. If I jump off the building, will you jump with me? Why is it like this? Luo Xin's mind went blank. There was only one sentence in her mind. Don't reply casually. If I jump off the building, will you jump with me? Ye brother jumped off because he lost his love, but I promised him that I would do whatever he did. The thoughts flashed across her mind like lightning, while Yemo fell down like a comet. In Luo Xin's eyes, the only one she could rely on now was Yi brother, but Yi brother actually jumped off the building. Her mind got blank. She suddenly thought, did Yi brother jump off because that woman promised him something but dumped him in the end? But I also promised him as well. The word promised kept ringing her mind. Was he going to be cheated again? At that instant, she didn't want to think about it anymore. She just closed her eyes and jumped off like that. The fresh wind brushed past her, and she actually felt some sense of satisfaction. Although it was a very short time, she finally realized her dream before her death. She managed to fly for a brief moment. In that instant, she actually felt tranquility and didn't have fear in her heart. She didn't want to think about anything in that moment, whether it was Emo or her sect or her two martial sisters. No wonder Yi brother said, "Perhaps my dream could be realized." Although it was a very short time, but it was realized indeed. But what was Yi brother's dream? Luo Xian suddenly felt strange. She should have fallen on the ground long ago. Why was she still not on the ground? She opened her eyes and yelled out in surprise, "Yi brother, did we all die? How come I don't feel the pain of falling on the ground?" Then, she subconsciously looked down and realized that she was getting higher and higher, not falling lower. What was this? Emo stood in front of Luo Xian with his hands behind his back and said with a lonely tone, "Luo Xian, thanks for jumping off with me. Let me help you realize your dream. Now, you can fly in the skies." Luo Xian dazed for a really long time before reacting. She looked at the endless sky underneath. It was like a dream. She looked at Emo and asked, "Yi brother, are we really flying in the sky?" Emo smiled plainly. "Yes, we are flying now." "Yi brother, are you an immortal?" Luo Xian dazed and asked with more shock. She had long known Emo wasn't ordinary, but had never expected him to be this extraordinary. Emo shook his head. His expression grew sadder. Immortal was his goal, but he and this goal were tens of galaxies apart. He might even never accomplish this goal. He knew he wasn't an immortal. Emo didn't reply and Luo Xian didn't ask. She looked carefully at where she stood and realized it was on the body of a huge sword. Where did this huge flying sword come from? She had never seen such a huge sword by Emo. After the initial shock, she finally calmed down. Although she had too much questions, she knew these things weren't something she could understand. If Emo didn't say, she wouldn't ask. She stood by Emo and felt this peaceful night sky and the broad view. Light wind brushed past and Luo Xian had this indescribable excitement and aspiration. After long, when Emo felt his spirit qi depleting, he went back on top of the building again. Luo Xian stood on the top of the building. She didn't have any questions nor ask where Emo's flying sword went. She just looked at Emo and said, "Yi brother, thank you. You fulfilled my dream. Although it was just one night, I'm satisfied." Emo smiled, "It's fine. I just happened to be able to do it, and you happened to be willing to believe me." Luo Xian's mind seemed to have suddenly matured a lot. For ordinary people, the hidden sex people were the apex and mystical beings, but to her, Emo was also the apex and mystical being. She heard Emo's words and smiled peacefully. "I just don't want you brother to be disappointed again, or perhaps I didn't think too much at the time and was just a sudden decision. If I had to do it again, perhaps I wouldn't dare to jump." Emo looked gratefully at Luo Xian and didn't speak. Ning Qingshue's attitude after she lost her memory dealt him a heavy blow. It was something he couldn't let go, and now, it suddenly got a lot better. "Don't tell anyone about me." After a moment, Emo said. Luo Xian nodded. Even if Emo didn't tell her, she wouldn't tell anyone. Tonight's event was too shocking. If this spread out especially to the hidden sects, who knows how great rupture it can cause. "Let's go. Let's go downstairs. Those people probably wouldn't be coming tonight." Emo turned back and smiled to Luo Xian. Luo Xian dazed. She understood now that other than coming up to catch the ghost, he also wanted to wait for her second martial sister to come. "You stayed." Ning Qingxue felt the necklace on her chest, and her expression was lost. Ever since that day Emo left spitting blood, she started feeling this heartache, and wearing this necklace could ease that pain. But no matter how hard she thought, she couldn't remember where she bought this necklace. And that pill Emo brought last time. Ever since she ate it, not only did her skin get a lot better, she also had this immortal vibe to her. It was as though she was going to ride the wind and fly. Although Li Mumei asked a few times what was going on, Ning Qingxue wasn't willing to believe it was due to Emo's pill. How could she have any associations with Emo? What sort of a person was Emo? Although Ning Qingxue wasn't too clear, she could understand through what others thought of him, and she also knew that the marriage between them was due to family issues. But ever since Emo was cast out by the Yi family, The Ning family had never mentioned the marriage between her and Yemo. Did something really happen in this year? Ning Qingxue frowned and sat there dazedly for a long time until Li Mumei came in. Qingxue, let's go out for a walk. It's not good to stay inside all the time. Li Mumei said worriedly to Ning Qingxue. Ning Qingshu shook her head and said, Mumei, I really don't believe that there's any connections between me and Yemo, but why did he come to you state? Li Mumei's face seemed morose. She didn't want to explain anything to Ning Qingxue. Some things, it was better to stay forgotten for Ning Qingxue. Her mother was right. Since Ning Qingxue stayed with Yemo, she was heavily injured twice. And Li Mumei also knew that Ning Qingxue probably went a flowing snake alone once. Although she didn't know exactly what happened, she knew it wasn't simple. Seeing that Li Mumei didn't talk, Ning Qingshu sighed. Is there really something I don't know? Li Mumei sat down. Qingxue, don't think too much. In the past year, you've seen Yemo a few times. I think he probably fell in love with you. Ning Qingxue nodded. She knew about herself. She knew that she was too pretty and was getting even prettier recently, but she really didn't care about that. What she cared about was accomplishing a successful career. Since her parents already left the Beijing Ning family, she needed to do something for the family. That was her goal. It was very normal for Yemo to fall in love with her, but it was impossible the other way around. Seeing that Ning Qingxue seemed to have agreed with her words, Li Mumei felt relieved. Okay, Qingxue, I'll take you to see some old friends in Beijing. It's not good to always stay here by yourself in your state. Ning Qingxue shook her head. Mumei, I don't really want to go to Beijing. I don't like that place. Mumei, do you know where this necklace came from? It's really good. I can feel it curing my heartache. Li Mumei looked worriedly at Ning Qingxue's necklace. Although she didn't know where it came from, she was certain it had something to do with Yemo. I'm not too sure. I think you probably bought it in Beijing. But this necklace looks really good. If you remember where you bought it, even I want to go buy one. It seems to be made from warm jade. It's really pretty. Li Mumei liked this necklace, even though she knew it was related to Yemo. Ning Qingshu put the necklace down and said after a while, Mumei, I've searched for some cases of memory loss on the internet. If it's a really soul-etched memory, then even if you lose it, you will have some impression, but I have no impression for Yemo at all. This means that although there is him in my lost memory, it's not very important. So, I don't really mind if I can recover this memory or not. You don't need to worry. Ning Qingshu saw the worry in Li Mumei's eyes and comforted her. Li Mumei thought and agreed. If Qingxue was really deeply in love with Yemo, then how can she have no impression at all? Perhaps Qingxue was right. Was she tricked by Yemo's sweet words during the days she stayed with him? Thinking about this, Li Mumei wished she could tell Qingxue's mom immediately. Maybe they thought wrong from the beginning. Li Mumei suddenly thought of something and asked Ning Qingxue excitedly, Qingxue, do you know the Zhuyun Temple? Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, I don't know Zhuyun Temple. What about it? Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, I don't know Zhuyun Temple. What about it? Li Mumei said mysteriously. However, in Luotsong, they built a new temple called the Zhuyun Temple. It has the two mottos on the door, lost in the deep clouds, awaken at this temple. It means that if you have any questions you are confused about, you can burn some incense and worship the Buddha in this temple. I heard it's very real and is very popular online. I heard that the lead monk of this temple is called Wu Ming. He's a very capable monk. How about we go to this temple and burn some incense? Just think of it as a holiday trip. Ning Qingxue asked confusedly. A newly built temple is very popular? Would it be some intentional spin on the internet? Li Mumei shook her head and said, that I don't know, but I heard that an old monk in the temple said he attained Tao in Luotsong, so he built the temple in Luotsong. Ning Qingxue said nonchalantly, in that case, let's go see it. IVT's very close to you state. Luotsong. Compared to a year ago, this place seemed a lot more populous. Many people said it was due to the Zhuyun Temple. Ever since the Zhuyun Temple was built here a few months ago, the tourists here increased drastically. When Ning Qingshu and Li Mumei came here, they found it to be very busy indeed. It wasn't any inferior than Yu State, which was a big city. Zhuyun Temple was indeed very popular, and they had to line up to burn incense. Although it had only been built for half a year, a long street of incense and offering shops had been set up. It was very busy, and most tourists would come here to burn incense and then go into the temple and ask about their troubles or make a wish. Before they left, they would buy a few artifacts from here for good fortune. After the two had requested to burn incense, the line had reached all the way to outside the temple. In this era, there was actually no one cutting in line. They all had a pious look on their face. Was it really that powerful here? Ning Qingxue looked at this long line of people and felt dubious. An old man with a broom stopped by the two suddenly. Ning Qingxue looked at the old man in surprise. He was in his 70s, but looked very strong. He glanced at Ning Qingxue once and closed his eyes. There seemed to be a lot of monks in this temple, but there really weren't many holding a broom like this 70-year-old monk. Just when Ning Qingxue and Li Mumei didn't know what this old monk was doing, this old monk suddenly opened his eyes and said, "I am Wu Guang. You two honor patrons need not to line up. You can come in and make offerings with me." Li Mumei looked vigilantly at the old monk. Other people had to line up to burn incense. Why did they not have to line up? Qingxue looked so out of this world. Was this old monk scheming something? The old monk didn't seem to notice Li Mumei's eyes and just turned to leave after finishing. Ning Qingxue pulled Li Mumei. "Let's go have a look. If we line up, we are going to wait for more than an hour." Li Mumei looked at the long line. They might not get to the front even in more than an hour. There were just too many people. Plus, this monk was so old that he couldn't have any bad intentions, right? The old monk took the two to the last Zen room. There was a Pu-sa painting in the room. The two couldn't recognize which Pu-sa it was. "Master Wu Guang, didn't you say you were going to take us into burning offerings? Why did you bring us here?" Li Mumei was getting more vigilant. Wu Guang monk put the broom down and said, "Ai me tuafo." Then, he said to Ning Qingxue, "Patron, you have fortune with a master who enlightened me, so I wish to help you resolve your problems, but before that, I need to see the necklace artifact on you." Ning Qingxue grabbed the necklace and said, "Master Wu Guang, are you talking about this?" "Me tuafu." Wu Guang monk continued, "Patron, you need not to take it down. I've confirmed it." "Okay, you may talk about what confusions you have." Ning Qingxue looked at the Wu Guang monk in surprise. How did he know that it was she who needed help, and they weren't just here to burn offerings? Li Mumei could also see that this old monk really seemed to know something. Before Ning Qingxue spoke, she intervened. "A few months ago, Qingxue was unconscious due to an accident, and when she woke up, she lost years of memory, but everything of her was normal according to the hospital diagnosis. We wish to ask Master Wu Guang, can that memory be recovered?" Ning Qingxue immediately supplemented, "Yeah, I've searched some cases about lost memory. Most of them remember fragments, but how come I remember nothing?" And Wu Guang monk sat on a cushion but didn't reply after hearing the two's words. Instead, he said, "Patron, can you please tell me where you got this necklace?" Ning Qingxue frowned. "I don't remember where I got this necklace. If I do, I don't need to ask you. Have you cultivated ancient marital arts?" Wu Guang asked, but then he shook his head. Even if she did, what could she have accomplished being so young? Looking at Wu Guang shaking his head after asking her that question, Ning Qingxue asked curiously, "Master Wu Guang, I haven't cultivated ancient martial arts, but what has my memory got to do with cultivating ancient martial arts?" Wu Guang nodded and said, "Patron, you don't know. After people lose memory due to outside force, they indeed do retain fragments. Especially the things you have a deep impression of. These memories will return with time. But this is definite. There are some memories that cannot be recovered and will not retain any fragments." Ning Qingxue said confusedly, "But I didn't feel anything at all. If the people around me didn't tell that I lost memories, I wouldn't even know. And I've seen many Western doctors and specialists say that even if you can't remember it yourself, with people constantly reminding you about things you have a deep impression of, you will still feel familiar about it. There shouldn't be no impression at all." "Me tuafo," the monk called out again and then said seriously, "You encountered a strong force that caused chaos in your spirit. I shouldn't tell you this, but because you have a necklace made by a Qian Bei himself on you, and it's 10 times better than the best I have seen." "What? Master Wu Guang, you say that this necklace is made by a Qianbei of yours? Who is that Qianbei? Ning Qingxue asked in shock. She saw that Wu Guang was already in his 70-foot. Wouldn't this Qianbei be 100? Wu Guang didn't answer Ning Qingshue's question, however. He just continued. When one cultivates ancient martial arts to a certain degree, you can attain inner qi, and when you reach a rather high state with the threat of death, you will subconsciously use inner qi to envelope the most precious part of your soul and your most precious memories. These memories will show up in your next life. Although you can't remember it completely, you will have some vague impressions. Of course, the pretense is that no one intervenes. But if you didn't die and woke up instead, then this enveloped memory wouldn't be remembered. It may even disappear slowly, just like what is happening to you. Ning Qingxue dazed for some time before asking cluelessly, but I've never learned any ancient martial arts. I don't even know what inner qi is. How can it envelope my soul and memory? Wu Guang nodded. Me too, FO. Even if you cultivate ancient martial arts to a very high state, you wouldn't be able to do such thing, much less patron don't even know ancient martial arts. I've only heard that this action not only has requirements for power, but also strict requirements for cultivation method. I also thought that a cultivation method capable of enveloping memories into reincarnation does not exist, but your situation is very similar to this case. Then Master Wu Guang, if that's the case, how do I recover my memory? Although Ning Qingxue knew that this wasn't the case for her, she still couldn't help asking. Wu Guang said, unless you cultivate this way again and reach at least the power state of the moment before you lost your memories. Then, your memories will recover automatically and your power will double up. But, you may still remember nothing, but... Wu Guang hesitated for a long time but eventually didn't continue. He said, 2 patrons please, I will be doing work now. Then, he closed his eyes and stopped talking. Ning Qingxue and Li Mumei looked at each other dubiously and then bowed before exiting. After the two came out, they were still confused. What this old monk said seemed to be too metaphysical. Luo Xin looked at this haunted building she had been living in for a week and actually felt a little wistful about leaving. Although it was a short week, she had experienced a lot. It seemed that in the 2 years living at Chunnan, it wasn't as eventful as this week. Luo Xin looked at this haunted building she had been living in for a week and actually felt a little wistful about leaving. Although it was a short week, she had experienced a lot. It seemed that in the 2 years living at Chunnan, it wasn't as eventful as this week. What are you thinking? Let's go. Yi Mo broke her thoughts. Luo Xin came back to her senses and nodded. Okay, let's go. Luo Xin, do you know where Qiyang Mountain is located? Although Yi Mo didn't know where Qiyang Mountain was, he believed that too many people would know and he only needed to ask. It was just like how he didn't know where Shenong Jiao was, but he could find out by searching online. Luo Xin shook her head and looked at Yi Mo strangely. I don't know you, brother. Do you not even know where you are going? I've been in Chun and for 2 years. Although I don't really go out, I heard most of the famous mountains in China. I've really never heard of Qiyang Mountain. I thought it was a place I haven't been. Yi Mo thought. Was he tricked by Hongxi? But Hongxi's tone and attitude couldn't be lying too at the time. Because he was talking with this sister at the time, he actually didn't ask where the Qiyang Mountain was. It doesn't matter. I'll ask someone later and we'll know. Since it can have a hidden sect there, it must be a famous mountain. People would know. But then, Yi Mo and Luo Xin asked many people and even searched on the web, but no one knew Qiyang Mountain. Luo Xin also asked in confusion, Yi brother, could that person have lied to you? Yi Mo also said uncertainly, I don't think that person would trick me, but from what we've asked there really doesn't seem to have a Qiyang Mountain. This is strange indeed. If he was really desperate, he could go to Beijing and ask Tanjiao and Luan Qingfeng, but he didn't want to do that. First, the two might not be willing to tell, and Yi Mo didn't want to see that arrogant Tanjiao again. Even if he didn't ask those two, Zhang Zhihui would probably know about it. He can go ask Zhang Zhihui. Yi brother, where are you planning to go now? Luo Xin looked at Yi Mo's face and knew they wouldn't be able to go to Qiyang Mountain. I want to go Ninghai first and ask someone I know about where it is. Yi Mo was unhappy that his plan was stopped. From his perspective, Hongxi even shattered his own dantian. How could he lie to him on this? If it was just by himself, Yimo would definitely step on the flying sword to Ning Hai, but with Luo Xin now, that would cause too much attention during the day. And, with his current chi reserve, it would be very exhaustful to bring Luo Xin with him to Ning Hai. Although she knew Yimo could fly, Luo Xin didn't ask why Yimo was taking the plane to Ning Hai. Since Yimo chose that, he must have his reasons. Although Chun'an Airport was very small, there was a lot of human traffic. When Yimo and Luo Xin walked into the airport, it wasn't empty at all despite it being the morning. "Yi brother, what are you looking at?" Luo Xin followed Yimo closely and noticed that Yimo had his attention on this middle-aged woman reading newspaper as soon as he came in. Yimo smiled. "Luo Xin, did you see that woman next to the window reading the newspaper?" Luo Xin nodded. "I see her. What's wrong, Yi brother? Do you feel that person is familiar?" Yimo continued to ask. Luo Xin shook her head in bewilderment. "I've never seen this person, and I don't feel her to be familiar at all." But even so, Luo Xin still studied that woman carefully and was sure she didn't seem familiar. "I'm sure you know her. That person is either your big martial sister or your second martial sister because she is masqueraded," Yimo said with certainty. It was because he felt a similar chi from this woman as he did with Luo Xin. This meant that their cultivation method was the same. Luo Xin also showed an expression of shock, but before she could talk, that middle-aged woman turned around. It seemed she noticed that Luo Xin was observing her. The moment she saw Luo Xin, she showed surprise and joy in her eyes, but it soon turned to worry. Although those eye expressions were very subtle, it fell clearly into Yimo's eyes, and he was more certain that this woman was related to Luo Xin. But as soon as this woman saw Luo Xin, she actually turned to leave. Luo Xin quickly followed without talking to Yimo. She was sure that this person was her big martial sister Luoying. Yimo didn't follow. He looked around, ensured no one was stalking them before standing at the side waiting for Luo Xin. He was sure that woman was Luo Xian's big martial sister, and Luo Xian recognized her. If it was her second martial sister, Luo Xian will hesitate first and even ask him before going over. That woman came to a quiet corner and looked around waiting for Luo Xian to come over. She pulled Luo Xian over anxiously and asked, "Luo Xian, how can you appear at the airport without any masquerade? Do you not want to live?" "Big martial sister, is that really you?" Luo Xian exclaimed in joy and hugged this woman. Although she didn't say it, she had always been worried for her big martial sister. Now that she saw her, of course she was very elated. Luoying also felt relieved. She had been constantly worried for Luo Xian, and now felt a lot more relieved seeing her. But immediately, she asked, "Luo Xian, who is that man next to you? You must not be like Luo Fei. If Master knew that 2 out the 3 of us who came out lost our virginity, she will be very sad." Luo Xian's face blushed and immediately said, "Big martial sister, what are you saying? Yi brother isn't like the sort of person you're thinking about. He's very nice. And he saved me many times. Even that lotus life pill I gave you last time was from him. Who is he? How does he have such precious pills? And why would he save you? A man being nice to a woman is definitely no good. Luo Xian, you must not trust a man," Luoying said vigilantly. "Big martial sister, sigh. Even that in I Luo Sutra was found with the help of Yi brother. How can you say that about him? Although I don't know if men are good or bad, but Yi brother is definitely a good person." Luo Xian immediately rebuked. Luoying looked at Luo Xian in shock and said after a moment, "Luo Xian, you have never rebutted my words before, but now for that Yi brother of yours, you have done so twice. Is that Yi brother really that good?" Luo Xian rubbed the edges of her clothes awkwardly and said, "Big martial sister, I really don't know how to explain it to you, but I believe him. He's not a bad person, and it was Yi brother who recognized you just then." "What? It wasn't you who recognized me? He has such capabilities. Has he seen me before?" Luoying immediately became more vigilant. Then, as though she suddenly thought of something, Luoying said worriedly, "Luo Xian, you said that Yi brother helped you find the Ni Luo Sutra and he recognized me. Then could it be him that night outside the Yinghua temple?" "Luo Xian, you're too young. Don't believe strangers' words." As she spoke, Luo Yin's face became more and more serious. The more she thought, the more she believed that perhaps the Yi guy followed Luo Xian to the Yinghua temple and then impostered as Luo Fei, stealing the Ni Luo Sutra, and then found Luo Xin later. Big martial sister, don't think like that. Yi brother isn't like that. Plus, even 1,000 Ni Luo Sutra wouldn't be worth anything in Yi brother's eyes, much less one. Big marital sister, please. I beg you stop saying bad things about Yi brother. He's a really good person. He's the best man I've ever met. In desperation, Luo Xin actually used the word man, but as soon as she said it, she noticed it and her face blushed. Luo Xin didn't want there to be any misunderstanding between her big martial sister and Yi Mo from the bottom of her heart. Big martial sister was the person she respected the most other than her master, while Yi brother was the person he admired the most. He saved her many times and was that nice to her. Plus, that Ni Luo pill wasn't worth anything to Yi brother. He could give the chi increasing pill that was countless times more precious. Why would he care about a mere Ni Luo Sutra? Plus, Yi brother said the Ni Luo Sutra was useless to him, and the only valuable thing was the 2 golden paper, and she gave them to him. How could he still be interested in the Ni Luo Sutra? However, she could tell her big martial sister that. That made Luo Xin feel guilty for the first time because she hid something for her big martial sister for Yi Mo. Sigh. Luo Yin sighed but didn't see anything. She could tell that this little martial sister of hers is admiring Yi brother to the bones. It was useless no matter what she said. It was just that from the bottom of her heart, she wanted the person who tried to kill them to be someone else, even that Yi brother rather than Luo Lin. How you always been with Yi brother these few days? Luo Yin asked casually. She could tell that her martial sister was still a virgin. This meant that they didn't do something over the line. Luo Xin thought that she did stay in the same room with Yi Mo last night, and now that her martial sister asked, she felt embarrassed. Her face was even burning a little. Originally, she thought it was fine, and Yi Mo didn't say anything, but now that her martial sister asked, she felt perhaps it wasn't so appropriate. Luo Xin thought that she did stay in the same room with Yi Mo last night, and now that her martial sister asked, she felt embarrassed. Her face was even burning a little. Originally, she thought it was fine, and Yi Mo didn't say anything, but now that her martial sister asked, she felt perhaps it wasn't so appropriate. Luo Yin could tell that if she didn't meet Luo Xin in time, it would only be a few days before Luo Xin also lost her virginity. Although she didn't like Yi Mo, she had to commend on Yi Mo's means. How long has it been, and even Luo Xin was so admiring of him. She was sure that Luo Xin met Yi Mo after moving into the new place. Looking at her martial sister's face, Luo Xin knew she misunderstood her again, so she could only say, "Big martial sister, we'll talk about this later. Yi brother is still waiting for me over there. Let's go over first." Luo Xin, tell me, if you didn't meet me, where were you going? Luo Yin asked seriously. Luo Xin peeked at her martial sister's face and said without much confidence, "Originally, Yi brother was going to Ninghai and I was going with him. Then. She thought about it for a long time and eventually didn't say that she was going with Yi Mo to the He-Lu sect to kill people. If she said this, perhaps her martial sister would rage immediately. Okay, now you don't need to go anywhere since we met up. Come back with me immediately," Luo Yin said decisively. But, Luo Xin hesitated before looking back at Yi Mo and then said, "But martial sister, I've already promised Yi brother I'll be going with him." Luo Yin immediately interrupted Luo Xin's words. "No, Luo Xin, you must come back with me. So many things happened this time, and Luo Lin is already with that Qiyuan. If something happens to you again, what would master do?" Luo Xin said pitifully, "Big martial sister, Yi brother was tricked before and he lost his love. If I go back on what I promised him, he would be tricked again." So. You're still denying that you're not in a relationship with him. What's his losing love got to do with you? You need to comfort him? As time goes on, you can replace that woman who tricked him, right? No more so's, we must go back. This isn't just about you and him, it's also about the Ni Luo Sutra. Do you know how important the Ni Luo Sutra is to our sect? Now that we found the book, we must get news back immediately to prevent more people outside from knowing. Luo Yin said seriously. Big martial sister, are you preparing to go back now? Luo Xin didn't dare to say much after her big martial sister mentioned the sect. Seeing Luo Yin nodded, Luo Xian fell into silence. After a while, she said while looking at the ground, "Then big martial sister, I'll give ye brother a notice. MHM, go quickly. I'll go buy the plane ticket." Then, Luoyin also headed towards the ticket window. Yimo saw the two discuss for nearly half an hour before Luo Xian came back. He could guess some of the things that was about to happen. "Ye brother," Luo Xian came over and said with difficulty. She didn't know how to break it to Yimo. She said that she would follow where Yimo went, but now, she was going to go back on her words. Yimo immediately understood what was going on and smiled. "Is your big martial sister telling you to go back?" "Mitchum, but I already promised ye brother to go with you to the He Lu sect," Luo Xian said guiltily. Yimo waved his hand and said, "Then go back quickly. You know about my power, so if fate brings us together again, we'll meet in the future." But, Luo Xian said a few buts. She really wanted to stay with Yimo and go around. If she goes back, she wouldn't be able to come out again. And she felt very comfortable staying with Yimo, and everything she wanted to was successful. She had been looking for the Ni Luo Sutra for 2 years, and as soon as Yimo came, he helped her solve the problem. Yimo felt the dependence Luo Xian had for him. He thought about Yiling and Tang Beiwei and subconsciously rubbed Luo Xian's head. Luo Xian's face blushed. She didn't expect Yimo to do this, but she didn't move. She actually quite liked it. "No buts, go back with your big martial sister. She's right. The Ni Luo Sutra is very important to your sect. Go back and cultivate." Yimo also quite liked this smart yet very innocent Luo Xian. He thought of when she nervously went to the 9th floor to catch the ghost, and when her face when she gave him the chi recovery pill with worry. She even promised him and closed her eyes and jumped off the building. Thinking about all that, Yimo actually felt a little disappointed she was leaving. "Ye brother, will I be able to see you again?" Luo Xian saw Yimo's expression and suddenly remembered Yimo's lonely face last night and felt guilty. She was almost about to say, "I can stay back with you," although she knew that after this departure, she would never be able to see him again. She still couldn't resist asking the question. Yimo came to his sense, and his face returned to normal. He took out the last chi-increasing pill and tins of fireball charms and gave it to Luo Xian. "These things don't have much use to me. You can keep that to reach Earth level. And these charms, I made them. You can throw them at your opponents. You only need to say the word Lin." Luo Xian took the things Yimo gave him and said helplessly, "Ye brother, I can't take this pill. It's too precious. Take it. If I need it, I can make it any time. As for whether or not we can see each other again, that's not important. After I'm done with my things, perhaps I will go there. Your big martial sister is here. I'm going." Yimo turned to leave. He knew that Luo Xian's big martial sister doubted him, so he didn't want to see her. Luo Xian suddenly said, "Ye brother, wait." Luo Xian took out a small jade bottle from her pocket carefully and gave it to Yimo. "Ye brother, there's only 3 chi recovery pills here, keep them." Yimo took the jade bottle. It was because of these pills that he truly understood Luo Xian. Seeing Yimo disappear from her sight, for the first time, Luo Xian disconsolate. She had this unexplainable feeling of lost and sadness in her heart. She knew that Yimo wouldn't be able to get into the small world at all. "Luo Xian, do you like him?" Luoyin suddenly appeared beside Luo Xian and looked at Yimo and asked. Luo Xian was shocked awake. She quickly put the things in her hands into her pocket and said with a bursting red face, "Martial sister, what are you talking about? Ye brother has someone he likes, and I'm a Dao cultivator." After a while, as though asking her martial sister, or as though asking herself, "Can we meet again?" Luoyin smiled. "Luo Xian, you gave your most chi recovery pills to him, and you're still going to say you don't like him? Perhaps the most precious wasn't the chi recovery pill, but that jade bottle." "Martial sister, you saw it?" Luo Xian's face was blushed, but it was more due to longing and sadness. Luoyin sighed. "Let's go, Luo Xian. We're not of the same world as him." "You're right. You won't be able to meet again even if he's from the outer hidden sections. Some things are best left aside. If you think about it too much, you will hurt your spirit. And the things he gave you, don't let Master see when we go back or she will be disappointed." I know, martial sister." Luo Xin looked down. She knew that Emo would not be able to enter the small world even if he knew the entrance, no matter how strong he was. And after she went in, she wouldn't be able to come back out. Even if she could, it would be 50 years later. 50 years? How many 50 years can a person live? A rumble sounded. A white passenger jet shot into the blue sky, disappearing amongst the clouds. Luo Xian could no longer control her emotions as her tears splashed on the stony ground, but the mark disappeared quickly. Luo Yin sighed and held Luo Xian's hand. Just like your tears on the ground, he will disappear quickly. Let us go, Luo Xian. Emo saw Luo Xian and her martial sister get on the plane and ensured there were no masters following, before turning to leave Chun'an Airport. Half an hour later, Emo appeared at Ninghai. He packed away the flying sword and called a taxi, returning to that house he lived at with Ning Qingxue. Standing at the door, Emo actually felt empty. His spirit sense immediately scanned that Su Wei wasn't there. Did she move away? Her room was empty. There was nothing. It seemed she really moved away. Emo opened the door, lost in thought as he walked in. There were many leaves on the ground in the yard. Obviously, there hadn't been anyone to manage the garden for a long time. Only that silver heart grass on the flower pot barely survived, but its dry leaves showed that no one had been caring for it for a long time. Emo silently walked to the flower pot and touched the silver heart grass with his hand gently. As though feeling something, the grass seemed a little more alive. Emo took out a bottle of water and tipped it around the silver heart grass. The water soon seeped in. At this moment, a voice sounded from outside. Who's back? Can I come in? Emo scanned his spurt sense out and thought strangely, why would she be back? Emo was sitting on the flower pot, but he stood up now. He looked at the woman who came in and asked, Jingwen, why did you come? I just came back as well. Emo was sitting on the flower pot, but he stood up now. He looked at the woman who came in and asked, Jingwen, why did you come? I just came back as well. Su Jingwen seemed more fatigued and stressed than a year ago. She was pleasantly surprised when she found that the person in the yard was actually Emo. Emo, it's actually you? I thought it was Su Wei coming back. Emo smiled. Jingwen, long time no see. You seem not quite well recently. By the way, did Su Wei move away? Su Jingwen heard the first part of the sentence and her face immediately became dull, but after hearing Emo ask about Su Wei, she immediately turned around and replied, Yeah, Su Wei has been gone for a long time. Every time I come past here, I would always think you or Qingxue would come back. Today, I saw the door seem to be open, so I came to ask. I didn't think you really came back. I thought I was dreaming. Hearing about Qingxue, Emo's face also went dull, and after a moment, he asked, Jingwen, have you ever seen Qingxue? Did she come back to live here? Although he knew that Ning Qingxue probably wouldn't come back, Emo still couldn't resist to ask. The reason he didn't go to Xinjiang first, and instead came back to Ninghai, was because deep in his heart, he hoped that Qingxue had come back, but the reality was she didn't. Even the silver heart grass she was taking care of died. There was a sliver of disappointment in Su Jingwen's eyes. Just then, when Emo said she didn't seem to be doing too well, she actually felt happy because he cared about her. But quickly, he asked about Su Wei and Ning Qingxue. It was as though she just came here to pass on a message. But soon, Su Jingwen set right her mentality. She was only normal friends with Emo, and Emo saved her mother's and her life. Now that Emo asked about Ning Qingxue, Su Jingwen still replied despite feeling a little disappointed and hurt. Qingxue went back to Yu State after getting hurt on the streets in Ninghai last time. She never came back again. I called Li Mumei saying that I wanted to visit her. Li Mumei told me that Qingxue seemed to have lost some of her memories, but Qingxue's mother doesn't want her to remember anything. So? Although Su Jingwen didn't say why, Emo could guess it. It was that Ning Qingxue's mother was scared she would remember things after seeing Su Jingwen. So her mother stopped everyone Ning Qingxue knew in Ninghai to go see her. Su Jingwen did know something about Ning Qingxue. Li Mumei told her. It was probably that after the incident, Ning Qingxue forgot the time she stayed with Emo. Seeing Emo's disappointed eyes, Su Jingwen sighed. That student in her eyes before became a mature man, a man troubled by love. At the moment when Su Jingwen saw Yimo's disappointed eyes, she actually had this feeling in her heart. Perhaps it was because Ning Qingxue didn't love Yimo that deep. If she did, she would have some impressions of him, no matter how little it was. Yimo suddenly thought that he still hadn't asked what was wrong with Su Jingwen since she came here. This was not very polite. Yimo quickly asked, Jingwen, I just got back and the house is a bit messy. Is there anything I can do for you? Oh, Yimo, are you free now? Su Jingwen came to her sense and quickly asked. Yimo nodded. I do. Su Jingwen immediately said, I want to invite you to food. Is that fine? Yimo smiled, of course. If I don't have much money on me, it should be me inviting you. You've already treated me to food once. Su Jingwen's face immediately brightened up. Let's go. My car is just outside. Hearing Su Jingwen's words, he immediately knew that Su Jingwen probably didn't happen to drop by here, but came here intentionally. This definitely wasn't her first time. She might have been doing this every day. Su Jingwen's car had this faint aroma, similar to her body smell. It could be seen that she really liked this smell. Just when Yimo closed the car door, Su Jingwen turned around and said, Yimo, how about we go to Westlake Restaurant again, how? Yimo immediately remembered that elegant and voluptuous Fong sister and the dishes with the same price for everything as well as the moment when he first ate with Su Jingwen. I really like the tea Fong sister makes. Let's go there. Yimo nodded in agreement. Su Jingwen started her car and didn't go far before her phone rung. Su Jingwen picked up the phone and looked at the number. She frowned and hung up. However, her actions seemed to be of no use as her phone rung again. Yimo said, Jingwen, let's swap. You sit here and I'll drive. Su Jingwen stopped the car and swapped seats with Yimo. When her soft and plump but passed by Yimo, Yimo reacted to it down there. Luckily, it was very short. Yimo felt a little awkward. He realized that he didn't have the self-control he thought he did in these things. He even thought of that deep ravine on Ning Qingxue's chest at the bottom of the Shinongjia cliff. Yimo shook his head and cleared his thought, focusing on driving. Although she pretended nothing happened, Su Jingwen's face blushed a little. Putting these things aside, Su Jingwen answered the phone. Cousin, what do you want? Oh, I'm outside with a friend now. I don't have time to go. You can go by yourself? At night? Sorry, I don't have time at night, either. I'm hanging up. Yimo didn't ask about it. If Su Jingwen had something, she will tell him. Since she didn't, he didn't need to ask. It suddenly became silent in the vehicle. As though feeling this awkward silence, Su Jingwen suddenly said, Yimo, you are that master who sold me the charms, right? Thank you. You saved my mother, and you saved me. Yimo also guessed that Su Jingwen probably recognized him, so he didn't deny. Although she knew that Yimo was the person who sold her the charms, Su Jingwen was still very excited when Yimo admitted it to her. It really is you. Thank you, Yimo, and thank you for the bracelet you made for me last time. Yimo just realized that Su Jingwen was wearing the coarse bracelet with 2 beads. Last time, he saw Ning Qingshu have 3 beads. It was probably given to her by Su Jingwen. He immediately thought about the bracelet he told Ning Qingshu to bring over. So he asked, Jingwen, last time I asked Qingxue to bring you a bracelet. How come you didn't wear it? Yimo was curious as that latter bracelet was much better than the current one. Why did Su Jingwen wear the bad one and put away the good one? Su Jingwen hesitated before saying, I like this one. Did you give the other for me? I'll go back and wear it on the other hand then. Yimo nodded and didn't say anything. It was her business that which one she liked. Are you coming back to live in Ninghai? Su Jingwen saw that Yimo seemed to have something in his mind constantly, so she asked. No, I'm finding a friend to ask where the Qiyang Mountain is. I'm just passing by Ninghai. Yimo said. Qiyang Mountain? Su Jingwen repeated strangely. Seeing that Su Jingwen's tone seemed to be a little strange, he asked immediately, Jingwen, you've heard of the Qiyang Mountain? Su Jingwen quickly shook her head and said, No, I don't know about it, but I saw some pictures online last week. Someone went to tour at Mount Kunlun and found a black plate. The plate had the words Qiyang in traditional Chinese characters. Yimo thought and quickly asked, Is it just these 2 words? Su Jingwen shook her head and replied, "No, one of them is Qiyang Shadow Cliff, the other is He Lu Thousand River." So it was in the Mount Kuan Luan region. It seemed he still needed to ask Zhang Zhihui. They were about to arrive at Westlake Restaurant, and Yimo suddenly turned the car and followed a black Audi. He saw on his Audi a youth and felt his spirit sense marker again. This marker was the one he made on the goo bug. The goo was on Chen Xing, and he didn't expect to feel it this quick again. Su Jingwen quickly said, "Yimo, the Westlake Restaurant isn't this way?" Yimo just realized Su Jingwen was still on the car and said apologetically, "Sorry, Jingwen. I just saw a very important person. I forgot this was your car. How about I get off the car first, and after I'm done with this, I'll treat you to food." Although Su Jingwen wasn't too happy, she still said, "Why are you getting off? Can I go with you?" "Okay, but this is purely personal. I'm afraid it will cause trouble for you." As Yimo spoke, he noticed that cars stopped by a bar called Wei Xian. Everyone knew what people did at bars. One rarely went there purely for drink, so Yimo had some concerns bringing Su Jingwen in. "Wait, Yimo, I see that everyone who goes in here needs a membership card. We don't have one. How do we go in?" Su Jingwen was very meticulous. She followed Yimo into the door and noticed that everyone in this Wei Xian had this membership card. "Wait, Yimo, I see that everyone who goes in here needs a membership card. We don't have one. How do we go in?" Su Jingwen was very meticulous. She followed Yimo into the door and noticed that everyone in this Wei Xian had this membership card. Yimo turned back and smiled. "It's fine. I have one." Then, he pulled out a card exactly the same as the person before him. Su Jingwen's face changed and seemed to have thought of something, but eventually didn't say it and just nodded. Indeed, when Yimo used the card at the door, the person didn't stop them. Instead, he bowed and led them in. "I'll have room 207. Yimo's spirit sense found the target in room 205, and two women seemed to have been brought in. 207 and 205 were right next to each other. The two went in the room. Yimo sent off the waitress and hung the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door. Seeing Yi Missouri close the door, Su Jingwen's heart started beating faster. Of course she knew what people usually did here. She even heard whining from one door. Didn't Yimo say he was following someone? Why did he bring her here? And this room seemed to have an intimate atmosphere. Even being with Yimo, Su Jingwen felt a little uneasy. Yimo's spirit sense immediately scanned the situation but couldn't hear any sound. He was prepared to direct the sound into the room when he turned around and saw Su Jingwen, who seemed a little anxious. He immediately understood why she was so nervous. If it was just him entering this room and closing the door, people would suspect him. If he found someone he didn't know, he couldn't let them know what he was doing. Thinking about this, he said apologetically to Su Jingwen, "Sorry, Jingwen, for inconveniencing you like this, but the person I'm following today is very important, so I need to know what they are doing at Ninghai." Su Jingwen's face eased up and fixed her hair and smiled. "It's fine. I don't have anything on anyways." After hesitating for a long time, she finally seemed to have made up her mind and asked, "Yimo, did you always come here frequently before?" Yimo dazed and replied, "No, this is my first time here today." "What's wrong?" Su Jingwen's eyes brightened up and asked immediately, "But how do you have this VIP card? I never saw you apply for it." Yimo suddenly understood Su Jingwen's meaning. She must not like such facilities and thought he came here frequently. Yimo immediately smiled and said, "When we came in, weren't there two people who happened to leave? I borrowed it from the person who passed me." So that was it. Su Jingwen suddenly breathed easy but immediately felt shocked. When Yimo came with her, he didn't stop at all, but he could still take someone's VIP card. This was too unbelievable. They just brushed past each other. How short was that time interval? But thinking about Yimo's master identity, she understood. And that little sliver of discomfort deep in her heart disappeared. However, she immediately thought, why would she be unhappy if Yimo came here a lot? Su Jingwen looked at Yimo again, and Yimo was already standing at the corner. He had a small dagger in his hand, and it cut into the wall like tofu. After a brief moment, The conversation next door passed in. However, the conversation wasn't normal. It seemed to be the dirty talk between two men and women. Heavy breathing and whining sounded. Su Jingwen's face was red as an apple. Even her neck turned pink. She looked at Yimo. Yimo's concentration didn't seem to be distracted at all. Her heart shook. Did Yimo like to hear this whining sound? But seeing Yimo's serious face, she knew that that wasn't the case. It must be due to something else. Yimo was indeed noticing these two men who just walked in. One of them had the spirit sense marked goo on him, but Yimo couldn't understand why they wanted women as soon as they came in. They didn't even talk, but were so focused into their business. If his spirit sense mark wasn't there, he really would have thought he followed the wrong person. After a few minutes, the brawl ended and then the two girls were sent away. They put on their clothes and started drinking beer. Yimo suddenly smelled this faint aroma and remembered that Su Jingwen was here. Thinking about the noise just then, he felt apologetic. He should have opened the sound later. Sorry, Jingwen. I didn't expect that to happen just then, Yimo said awkwardly. Su Jingwen, with a bursting red face, glared at Yimo. She didn't even say it's fine. It meant that she was really angry. Seeing Yimo's troubled state, Su Jingwen took back her glare and then said, Only this time. Next time I won't forgive you. Yimo finally felt relieved a little. He wouldn't be with her next time for sure. This time was just a coincidence. I know you're not trying to listen to that. What are you trying to listen to? Su Jingwen suddenly came up beside Yimo, making Yimo remember her soft ass on the car. Coupled with the scene he just saw, his heart couldn't help to sway. As though feeling Yimo's unsual eyes and the heat from his body, Su Jingwen immediately rolled her eyes on Yimo. You're not allowed to think dirty. Even if you do, think about your Qingxue, don't think about me. Hearing about Qingxue, Yimo's heart went cold. That hot feeling went away immediately. Even his eyes went sad. Su Jingwen immediately regretted after saying it. Why did she have to mention Ning Qingxue? Yimo's change in expression couldn't escape Su Jingwen's meticulous eyes. She found that Yimo had become cold and indifferent. Those romancing eyes disappeared without a trace. Sorry, I didn't mean it. Su Jingwen felt more regret for her words and moved closer to Yimo. Su Jingwen froze. She even forgot she was almost on Yimo. Su Jingwen froze. She even forgot she was almost on Yimo. Yimo looked apologetically at Su Jingwen and said, Sorry, Jingwen, I brought this on you this time. These people have big feud with me. They're like mad dogs. Whoever offends them, they will annihilate. I just didn't expect that they won't even let go of the friends I know. Hearing Yimo's words, Su Jingwen suddenly realized that she was just normal friends with Yimo and they were going after her. What tragedy would happen to Yimo's close friends and relatives? Yimo, your family in Beijing and Qingxue. Yimo knew what she meant. Yimo smiled. They won't have a chance, at the latest, tonight. I will pull this organization from the roots. Seeing Yimo smiling with killing intent, Su Jingwen's heart shook. She had never seen this side of Yimo. He actually had such intense killing intent. Perhaps she never really understood who Yimo was and only saw one facet of him this whole time. I'm fine. Don't worry. What should we do now? Su Jingwen looked worriedly at Yimo. Although she didn't know who One Eye and Hanzai were, she could tell that they belonged to an extremely strong organization. Yimo stood up. Let's go and have a chat with next door. Su Jingwen looked in surprise. We're going to them now? Yes, we go now. I'll collaborate with them. Yimo nodded and said, But they are all killers. How can they collaborate with us? Su Jingwen looked at Yimo in confusion. They will. Then, Yimo stood up and brought Su Jingwen out of the room. Jingwen, how are you here? You. At the same time Yimo opened his room, the door opposite to them, 206, also opened. A handsome youth with his arms around a girl whose face was still red came out, and the instant he saw Su Jingwen, his face was full of shock. Su Jingwen, also dazed, and after a moment called, Weizheng cousin? How come you are here? That handsome youth almost couldn't believe his eyes. After a long time, he reacted and his face went green. He pointed at Su Jingwen with his finger and said, Jingwen, You actually opened a room here with a man. How shameless are you? You. Su Jingwen never thought the cousin who had always been nice and amicable to her became so hideous. He actually pointed at her face and called her shameless. She said angrily, Xiaoweizhen, what's my being here got to do with you? Who are you to me? Aren't you here with another woman yourself? What right do you have to talk about me? You. Xiaoweizhen felt so fury. Thinking about the woman who he had thought about for many years was being slept by another man. He could no longer control himself. I'm a man. I have some entertainment, so what? It's just for fun on occasion. But you are so shameless coming here with another man. Xiaoweizhen was irate. In his mind, Su Jingwen belonged to him. No one else could touch her. But now, he even didn't get a chance to touch her, but someone else got in bed with her first. Su Jingwen looked at Xiaoweizhen, who had lost his mind. After a moment, she calmed down. She suddenly reached out her hand and grabbed Yimo's arm and stuck closely to him and said plainly to Xiaoweizhen, Xiaoweizhen, I didn't say anything about your entertainments. You are you. I am me. Am I related to you? What right do you have to tell me what to do? I like booking hotels with other people. What's that got to do with you? I love Yimo. So what? Su Jingwen was soft on the outside but tough on the inside. Once she was angered, she wouldn't care about anyone or anything. Plus, to Su Jingwen, Xiaoweizhen overreacted way too much. Okay. I thought you were very busy. You said you had things with your friend. So this was the thing? You shameless woman. Even if you want it, can't you tell me? Can I not satisfy you? Xiaoweizhen was almost going crazy with jealousy. He walked up a few steps towards Su Jingwen and slapped with his hand. Su Jingwen, who had calmed down already, was triggered again by Xiaoweizhen. She really didn't think that her cousin would be this crazy when he got angry. He had no sense of reason at all. Yimo heard they were cousins, so he didn't intervene, but now that Xiaoweizhen was going to hit her, he wasn't going to keep watching. Before Xiaoweizhen's hand reached Su Jingwen, Yimo already grabbed his wrist and slapped a few palms back. Then, he kicked. Xiaoweizhen was slapped so hard that his mouth was full of blood and a few teeth fell out. Then, he was kicked back into the room. The sound of him crashing into the ground could even be heard outside. That woman with Xiaoweizhen screamed and quickly rushed inside to check up on Xiaoweizhen. Su Jingwen was shaking with anger. Her face was pale and couldn't say anything in a long time. Yimo sent some qi into Su Jingwen's body to help her calm down. Sorry, Yimo. I don't feel too comfortable. I'm going back. Su Jingwen calmed down and looked apologetically at Yimo. Yimo quickly said, It's fine. Go back. I'll be fine by myself. I caused this to you today. Don't say sorry. Su Jingwen suddenly looked up at Yimo and seemingly wanted to say something, but eventually didn't say anything. She turned and left. Yimo followed Su Jingwen with his spirit sense until she got on the car and left. Then, he shook his head helplessly. Su Jingwen's cousin was too much of a douchebag. But then, Yimo cast these thoughts aside and knocked the door on 205. Who is it? We don't need any service here. One Eye's coarse voice sounded. Yimo suddenly pushed open the door and looked at the two, who were in shock, and said plainly, You don't need service, but I do. Who are you? How did you open this door? One Eye looked at Yimo in shock. He clearly locked the door, but how was Yimo able to open it? The sensitivity to danger of being a long-term killer immediately surged up. In the twinkling of an eye, he had a black pistol in his hand. Han's Eye also looked at Yimo with vigilance, while a triangular small spear appeared in his hand. Yimo didn't seem to see their actions at all, nor look at the pistol in One Eye's hand. He just walked in and sat down. After sitting down, Yimo looked calmly at One Eye. You're called Ninth Uncle, right? I'm coming to save your life today, but if you don't listen, I don't mind sending you to hell. You're asking to die. Ferocity flashed across One Eye's eye as he raised his pistol instantly and fired. Yimo suddenly raised his hand as well, and at almost the same moment One Eye fired. He caught a bullet with his 2 fingers and his face went cold. If you dare to fire a second shot, I don't mind embedding this clip into your forehead. You caught a bullet with your hand? One Eye's tone became shaky. Even his hand was shaking. He heard that some ancient martial arts masters could catch bullets with bare hands. But this youth who was this close to him, only a few meters, not only caught the bullet but with 2 fingers. Even ancient martial arts masters can't do that? Is he still human? Emo flicked his fingers, and the bullet flew by almost along One Eye's ear, shooting into the wall behind him. Just when One Eye was more shocked, Emo's cold voice sounded, "If I want to kill you, it's only a matter of 1 finger. If you still want to live, I suggest you not to move. My patience isn't that good. I won't forgive you the second time." Crank. One Eye's pistol fell on the ground. He actually lost his will to fight. He was a killer. What sort of people hadn't he seen before? What could make him lost his will to fight? But this youth in front of him rendered him shaking, feeling that the youth was undefeatable. He had a feeling that no matter what tricks he had, they were all useless in front of this person. He would die as soon as he tried anything. Who was this person? When did he offend such a person? Hanzai also looked at Emo in shock. His weapon also slunk. Emo catching the bullet electrocuted him too much. Was this something humans did? Qian Bei. You. When I felt that this person seemed familiar. He looked like the Emo on the picture he was shown, but this was too shocking that he didn't dare to believe. If Emo was such a terrifying person, wouldn't it be suicide trying to kill people related to him? I'm Emo, the person you want to kill. Emo smiled plainly. His tone was extremely plain. They both felt hopeless. If this terrifying person in front of them was Emo, then they had no chance of living at all today. The one-eyed suddenly gritted his teeth. This person in front of him was indeed Emo. He didn't expect Emo to be such a potent being. If Emo wanted to kill him and Hanzai, they wouldn't be able to escape no matter what tricks they played, but he still had a sliver of hope. It was that Emo wasn't going to kill them but negotiate with them. Otherwise, with his skills, he would have long killed him and Hanzai. The one-eyed suddenly gritted his teeth. This person in front of him was indeed Emo. He didn't expect Emo to be such a potent being. If Emo wanted to kill him and Hanzai, they wouldn't be able to escape no matter what tricks they played, but he still had a sliver of hope. It was that Emo wasn't going to kill them but negotiate with them. Otherwise, with his skills, he would have long killed him and Hanzai. Yiqian Bei, I know the gap between us is big. In your eyes, perhaps I'm not even an ant. If you have any requests, please tell us, but if you want us to betray the Earth Fiend, then just kill me. One-eyed gritted his teeth. Either way, it was going to be death, so he might as well be straightforward. Emo said calmly, "You don't dare to betray Earth Fiend only because of your family or the goo bug that makes your fear." One-eyed looked at Emo in shock. After a long time, he breathed out slowly. "How do you know we have goo bugs in our bodies?" Goo bug was a mean for the Earth Fiend to control their subordinates. One-eyed had seen with his own eye that an Earth Fiend killer was caught back after betraying the organization. Then, the goo bug ate his flesh for 3 days and 3 nights. At that time, the flesh of that killer was almost eaten up, but he was still howling and wasn't dead. Ever since then, he had the belief that no matter what, he must not betray the organization. Emo smiled. "Let's not talk about the goo bug in your body first. What I want to say to you is, do you know your final ending?" Hanzai glanced once at One-eyed and suddenly intervened. "As long as we reach Heaven Rank Killer, we are free, so my goal is Heaven Rank." Emo laughed and immediately said coldly, "Let's not say whether you can live to reach Heaven Rank, but even if you do, that would be the end of your life. You should know of the Goo King, right? He controls you people with the goo bugs. This kind of goo bug will devour the life force and essence blood of the person you kill and digest it in your body." "So what?" One-eyed shivered at Emo's words, but said without willing to back down. Emo shook his head. "No biggie. It's just that after you reach Heaven Rank Killer, the goo bug in your body will have matured and his final feast would be the life force and essence blood in your body. Of course, after consuming you, it has finished its task and they can be taken by your head, that Goo King, to cultivate evil ways." "You're bullshitting." One-eyed shook in terror. He even knew that Emo wasn't bullshitting but couldn't help denying it verbally. Emo sneered. "I'm not bullshitting. You know it yourself. Tell me, have you really ever seen any Heaven Rank Killer?" You definitely won't be able to see one because they have been used as cultivate resource. It's that simple. Are you saying that the more laurels and honor we get, the closer to death we are? Hanzai asked shakily. He subconsciously felt that Yimo was right, very right. What do you think? Yimo didn't explain anymore and asked rhetorically. After long, one-eyed sighed, I've been suspecting it for a long time. Why was there not a single heaven-rank killer? If they really were going to be free, they should let all the killers know. After all, we would have a goal to work for, but I've never heard of a single freed heaven-rank killer. Now hearing Qian Bei's words, I believe Qian Bei's words are true. Ninth uncle, this? Hanzai also looked at One-Eyed in shock. He was speechless. After a moment of silence, One-Eyed looked at Yimo and said, Yi Qian Bei, I know it's very easy to kill us for you. I don't know why you don't kill us and still tell us the truth. We're very grateful for you, but we can't betray the organization. So if you're going to kill us, please do it fast. Yangju will be very grateful. Yimo said calmly, if I was going to kill you guys would have been dead bodies long ago. Would I need to waste time talking with you? But I said we can't betray the organization. One-Eyed struggled. It's because you have the goo bugs in your bodies? Yimo looked at One-Eyed. One-Eyed decided to brawl and stood up. Yes, it's because of the goo bugs in our bodies. Qianbei, you haven't seen these goo bugs before, and you don't know how terrifying they can be. I would rather die immediately than betray the organization. What if I can get the goo bugs out of your bodies? Yimo said plainly. What? Qianbei, you really can get them out? One-Eyed looked at Yimo in astonishment. Then, he immediately followed. Yi Qianbei, if you can really take the goo bugs out of our bodies, my life will be yours. Then, One-Eyed knelt down on one knee. His expression was not only genuine but determined. Hanzai looked once at One-Eyed. Although he was bulky, it didn't mean he was dumb. He knew that if he didn't show his stance right now, he would be dead for sure. And he never felt a sense of belonging with Earth Fiend. Thinking about this, Hanzai also knelt beside One-Eyed without hesitation. Who was the person you killed before? Yimo asked One-Eyed. He's a merchant from Macau and Ninghai. One-Eyed didn't even finish and was stopped by Yimo. He was no longer interested. Then, Yimo grabbed Hanzai's arm. He swiped with his hand, and a yellow goo bug appeared in his hand. He was already middle stage chi gathering now, and it was too easy for him to pick out a goo bug. If Yimo chose the other person, then they would be finished now. It was now he realized Yimo's decisiveness in killing, and he also knew why Yimo told him and Hanzai to kill. It was a symbol of loyalty. Yimo closed his eyes and didn't talk. After One-Eyed and Hanzai left, his spirit sense immediately scanned Xiaowazian. He was kicked and slapped by Yimo but was still in his room. But from how he kept calling, he was probably calling for backup. Yimo sneered. If Xiaowazian went away, then he would let it go, but if he was still going to piss him off, then he really can't be blamed. Xiaowazian was infuriated at this moment. Ever since he was young, he was the genius of his age. When had he got insulted like this in his life? Although Su Jingwen had never agreed to his pursuit, in his eyes, no one else could touch Su Jingwen. But now, not only was the woman of his dreams slept by another man, and he was slapped in front of her, and even lost a few teeth. If he could swallow the insult, then he wouldn't be Xiaowazian. So he would have Yimo's guts for garters. As for Su Jingwen, she was no more than a slut, but he wouldn't let her go for daring to betray him. Yimo took back his spirit sense. He really didn't consider this Xiaowazian a threat. He was waiting for One-Eyed and Hanzai. If they couldn't finish the job he gave them, then not necessary to keep them alive. Yimo took back his spirit sense. He really didn't consider this Xiaowazian a threat. He was waiting for One-Eyed and Hanzai. If they couldn't finish the job he gave them, then not necessary to keep them alive. One-Eyed didn't stay out for very long. An hour later, he had come back to Yimo's room with Hanzai. However, he held in awe and veneration when he looked at Yimo. Yimo knew that it was his fireball charm that shocked him. Yi Qianbei, the mission is done? Yimo nodded. Not bad. Draw a map of your HQ for me.
Yes.
One-Eyed sat down and took out pen and paper. Soon, he drew a rough map. Guillermo took the image and looked. It was indeed different to the one Chin gave him last time. It seemed that the Earth Fiend HQ wasn't at where the two drew, but these two places were two gathering spots. Seeing Guillermo frown at the map, One-Eyed immediately said, Yi Qian Bei, when our killers are out on a mission, they will report back the situation every day. If at night someone still didn't report back, then it meant that something had happened to that killer. If we depart for Hong Kong at this moment, that person would have been long gone by the time Qian Bei get there. Guillermo smiled plainly. I'm sure that when I arrive, he won't be gone yet. You don't need to worry about it. Now I have another mission for you too. If you can do it well, then you don't need to call me Qian Bei, and you can go work for my company. If you can't, then I don't need to say anything else. Yes, Qian Bei, Yang Jiu and Han Zai will be able to finish the mission. One-Eyed heard Yimo's words and rejoiced. He was very smart. He knew that Yimo had some concerns for them too. Now that Yimo said this, it meant that if they did the mission well, they could be treated as Yimo's own men. Just by Yimo's power, he felt that it wouldn't be too bad working for Yimo, and he didn't need to worry about Gu Bug. Okay. Yimo clapped. In the room 206, there's a guy called Xie Weizheng. He was attacking my friend, so I beat him up. I'm busy tonight, so I don't have time to play with him. You two can treat him. I guess this guy is calling people for help. If they do things over the top, you can kill them. I will take the responsibility. Yang Ju immediately said out loud, Qian Bei, don't worry. Such a clown I can kill in the flip of the hand. He was worried that Yimo looked down on his power because ever since Yimo walked in, they didn't even have the ability to resist. If Yimo looked down on their abilities, then he wouldn't give them two important tasks, so he needed to show himself and his true capabilities now. He needed to tell Yimo that other than him, Yimo, everyone was a piece of cake for an Earth-rank killer like him. Okay, perhaps I will come back tomorrow. I will see what you do. That friend of mine is called Su Jingwen. She was originally the person you two were going to kill. Okay, I'm going. Then, Yimo left the room and disappeared without a trace. Seeing Yimo suddenly disappear, Yang Jiu wiped the sweat from his forehead and gasped. Yimo gave him such a huge pressure, especially that last sentence. He almost knelt down. Ninth uncle, this Yi Qian Bei is too strong. I've never seen someone as strong as him and that fireball charm. It's just. Han Zai stuttered. Yang Ju sunk into silence for a while before saying seriously, Han Zai, I've gone to many places and experienced countless dangers. I've seen some tough people, even some ancient martial artists. I've even killed a yellow-level martial artist myself, but I've never seen someone as strong as Yimo, ninth uncle. Han Zai looked hesitantly at Yang Jiu. Yang Jiu stopped him and continued, Han Zai, we can also take this as an opportunity. Yi Qian Bei is definitely the strongest person I have seen. If he can really finish the Gu King, then we can sell our lives to him and don't plot anything. We will only get stronger if we follow the strongest. He thought of the fireball charm Yimo gave him and still felt fearful. There were many strange things in this world, but he had never seen a piece of paper that could turn a living person into flying dust in an instant. This was too out of this world. Yang Jiu waved his hand and said, as for whether this is our fortune or hell, it all depends on this mission. Su Jingwen is the target we have to protect. You can see that Su Jingwen definitely isn't only an ordinary friend of Yi Qian Bei. Perhaps she's Yi Qian Bei's woman, so we must not fail this mission. Yes, ninth uncle, I will listen to you. Han Zai wasn't dumb. Dumb people wouldn't be able to enter Earth Fiend. He obviously knew how important this mission was. Yang Ju nodded and said, if we succeed this time, we can follow Yimo Qian Bei, but if we fail, then death is the only thing that awaits us. So, even if we die, we can't let this mission fail. Ninth uncle, I think we might as well go in and do this to that Xie guy. Then, Han Zai made a cutting pose with his hand. Yang Ju sneered. Can we go kill people in the open now? As soon as we kill that Xie guy, we will be hunted by the police. And if we are hunted by the police, how can we take care of Su Jingwen once that Xie guy's people attack her? Our main goal is to protect Su Jingwen, not kill this Xie Weizheng. Plus, even if we are going to kill him, we must not let anyone know. Yimo found Su Jingwen sitting in a coffee shop dazing. He didn't know about Su Jingwen's feelings towards Xie Weizhang, so he didn't go interrupt her. In Yimo's heart, Su Jingwen had always been his friend, a knowing friend. He didn't think too much. As to what Su Jingwen said at the doorway, he treated it as anger words. But he felt that Su Jingwen had no feelings for that Xie guy at all. Su Jingwen wasn't as easy to talk to as she seemed. She had this stubbornness in her heart. If she had determined something, then no matter how you persuaded her, she would follow her own opinion. She was very strong-minded while that Xie guy was too subjective. It was very hard for Su Jingwen to like such a guy. Yimo walked by Su Jingwen's car and opened her car door. He put a few fireball charms on her seat before leaving quietly. Although he believed Yang Jie's words, he couldn't believe anything completely. He still left Su Jingwen with some self-protection measures. If Su Jingwen was hurt due to him, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. Su Jingwen sighed and walked out of the coffee shop. She didn't know why she said such words. It wasn't because of his cousin, but he was afraid Yimo would look down on her for saying such stuff. And would Yimo misunderstand due to her cousin's words? But she couldn't go up to Yimo and explain such things. This made her very troubled. Although her cousin's attitude and vicious words hurt her a lot, that wasn't the main thing now. She didn't even care about it at all now because she had completely seen what sort of person her cousin was. Before she felt apologetic for rejecting her cousin, but now she didn't feel that at all. She still couldn't believe that the person she met today was the cousin who was usually very gentlemanlike. Su Jingwen opened the car door and felt lost. At this moment, she suddenly really wanted to go look for Yimo but didn't have the courage. Su Jingwen looked at the 5 fireball charms on her seat in shock and suddenly felt warm. Yimo came but saw that she was absent-minded in the coffee shop and didn't go in, but he still cared about her and left 5 charms fearing that her cousin would do bad things to her. Although she knew that her cousin wouldn't do something over the top, Su Jingwen still grabbed the fireball charms tightly. She was very grateful for Yimo. Yimo stood on the flying sword and flew to Hong Kong like a speeding comet. Earth Fiend was too nefarious of an organization, killed so easily. A minute that this organization existed, Yimo felt uncomfortable for a minute. Yimo felt a little tired flying to Hong Kong because this distance was a little far. His cultivation level was still a little low. Yimo found a place where no one was and landed. He was prepared to rest a little bit before releasing the goo bug and following it to the Goo King. Just when the sky got dark, Yimo's cultivation essence recovered. He took out that yellow goo bug and threw it out. That goo turned into a yellow ray and disappeared. Yimo followed it with the speed as fast as the goo. However, a few minutes later, the yellow bug flew into a mansion in a vast expanse of land. Just when the sky got dark, Yimo's cultivation essence recovered. He took out that yellow goo bug and threw it out. That goo turned into a yellow ray and disappeared. Yimo followed it with the speed as fast as the goo. However, a few minutes later, the yellow bug flew into a mansion in a vast expanse of land. Yimo scanned his spirit sense in and immediately followed. The goo fell into a blue-clothed man's hands. The man looked like he was in his 40s, but his face was very bleak and had no emotions. However, his power seemed to be not much lower than Tan Jiao. It surpassed Earth-level tertiary stage and was Earth stage peak. There was such a master hidden in the cities and cultivated for such a short time. Yimo was sure that the man had cultivated no more than 30 years. He could reach this state in 30 years. It could be seen that this person was not only talented, but his cultivation method must be extraordinary too. Yimo knew how hard it was to cultivate ancient martial arts. He had seen many cultivation methods for ancient martial arts, and their ways of opening meridians were very trash. It was complete trash compared to spirit chi cultivation methods. Even if Yimo cultivated ancient martial arts himself, he would need 5 to 6 decades to reach Earth level, and during these years, he would need medicinal herbs to support it. The blue-clothed man was in his 40s, but was already halfway to Great Heaven state. It could be seen that his cultivation method was overpowered. Who knew how many essence blood bugs this guy had devoured to reach this stage? The man held the yellow goo bug Emo released as his face turned blue. He really didn't expect that the host of this bug was killed twice in such a short time. Who is it? You dare to kill the host of my bug. If I don't turn you to dust, then I would have wasted this 30 years of cultivation. Sha-3, come over. The blue-clothed man said in anger and couldn't control his fury as he slapped the table in front of him to pieces. A black-clothed man dashed from the side and walked in front of the man. He knelt down with one knee and said, Goo King, Sha-3 awaits your command. The man's hideous face relaxed a little and said with a cold tone, I planted this goo bug a few days ago on someone called Hanzai. Since the goo bug is here, it means that Hanzai is dead. I ordered Hanzai to kill Yemo's family. Since Hanzai is dead, this means that his death is related to Yemo. Immediately notify Sha-1 to ask Yangju about the situation. Then, tell him to assemble all the killers he can. Do not leave a single person behind in the Beijing Yi family. Kill everyone Yemo knows.
Yes.
Sha-3 replied. The blue-clothed man sneered and looked at the goo bug in his hand. I, Rin Sha, will show you the consequence of offending me and killing the host of my goo. Wait. The blue-clothed man called out and said, after finishing the Yi family, bring those few women Yemo knows to Chunin. I will go there personally to humiliate them. Then, the man's veins bulged on his head. Ever since he made his debut, no one dared to mess with him. Only he could go kill people who dared to kill his men. But today, several of his men were killed by a young man in his 20s. He wouldn't tolerate such a thing. Sha-3 just reached the door and was kicked back by a huge foot retreating tens of meters as he smashed into the blue-clothed man. He spat out more than 10 mouthfuls of blood and just died like that. A goo flew out and landed on the blue-clothed man's hand. The blue-clothed man's iris quickly retracted. One kick, and his personal guard Sha-3 was dead. This man was definitely a dreadful being. He looked up and saw Yemo, who walked in through the door slowly. His face was calm as though he didn't kick that foot, and Sha-3 fell over himself. Who are you? Although everyone who went to kill Yemo knew what Yemo looked like, this blue-clothed man had never seen Yemo's picture. He didn't know Yemo, and from the bottom of his heart, he didn't want to lower himself to know Yemo. Although he didn't know Yemo, from how Yemo kicked Sha-3 to death in one kick, he knew that this youth would definitely be able to threaten him. Although the youth wasn't as strong as him, he shouldn't be far from him. He didn't want to start a conflict with such a person. There was no benefit for him. Thinking about this, the blue-clothed man said, I have no feud with you. Why did you start trouble at my place and kill my disciple? Am I supposed to be scared of you? Yemo sneered. Who am I? No feud? I'm the Yemo whom you were about to kill everyone related to. Tell me if we have feud. You are Yemo? The blue-clothed man's face changed. It went from bleak to astonishment. He knew that Yemo's power wasn't bad and had a few killing blows, but was at most black-level power, so he didn't care at all. As for Yemo killing many people of the Hilu sect, the news hadn't reached him yet. But when he saw Yemo today, he realized that he couldn't even tell how strong Yemo was. Only his trusted loyals knew this place. No one knew that he lived here. How did Yemo find him? Thinking about this, Ren Sha's heart sunk. He killed through any means necessary and was very vengeful and often killed many innocent people. However, he had his own standards, and that was the people who he killed had to have no threat to him. If they did, then he would resist it and try to avoid conflict until he had the power to take them out from the roots. But there were too little people in this world who could threaten him, and just listening to Yemo's age, he would know that Yemo definitely had no threat to him. But when he saw Yemo, he realized that he had made a big mistake. Yemo was not only a threat to him, but a being no lesser than him. He didn't want to mess with such a person. If he knew that Yemo was this strong earlier, he wouldn't intervene with Yemo's matter, much less kill everyone near him. Rinsha's sixth sense was very strong. Although he didn't think Yemo was a match for him, he didn't want to take risks. If he had another 3 years, he could reach Great Heaven stage. By then, Yemo would be an insect in his eyes. Then, another 2 men rushed in. Their appearances were similar to the Sha-3 Yemo just killed. The two men walked up to Rensha and knelt down saying, Gu King, we just received news that Lu Min died in Ninghai, and Yangzhou and Hanzai are nowhere to be seen. You killed everyone I had in Ninghai? You were just in Chunnan in the morning. How can you go to Ninghai to kill people? And then how can you appear here? Rensha's eyes turned fierce. He had seen Yimo's means, and he didn't want to continue this with Yimo. But Yimo was the person who kept killing the hosts of his goo bugs. This made him infuriated. He had already forgotten what his killers went to do at Ninghai. Yimo sneered and raised his hands. Two wind blades, and the two men who knelt down on the ground were also killed by Yimo. Two goo bugs flew out quickly, landing in Rensha's hands. You! Rensha could no longer hold in the anger and raised his hands. More than 10 different colored rays charged at Yimo. Rensha wanted to use goo bugs to attack him. Yimo sneered and shot out a chi swirl. All the goo bugs were trapped by the chi swirl. Before they could come out, they were burnt to crisp by Yimo's fireball. A putrid smell came, and they turned to flying dust falling everywhere. Rensha looked at the ground filled by dust in shock. He was dumbfounded. There were indeed people who could counter his goo, but not this easily. It had been less than 3 minutes, and they were all gone. In that instant, Rensha knew that the distance between him and Yimo was way too great, to the extent that he couldn't even stand a blow. Yimo was a great heaven master. No matter how much he didn't want to admit it, he was sure Yimo was a great heaven master. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be able to kill his goo so simply and easily. I'm not a match for you. All the goo bugs were killed by Yimo. Blood seeped out of the corner of Rensha's mouth. Although these goo bugs lived off other people's life essence, they were still cultivated by him. His spirit was affected when so many of them were killed. Yimo walked up a few steps slowly and said, Of course you're not a match for me. I don't need you to remind me. Before I die, can you tell me how you found me? Rensha's eyes showed desperation. Yimo knew that Rensha couldn't just give up like this, but Yimo wasn't afraid of anything Rensha had planned. In his eyes, this Rensha was at most the same as Tan Jiao. If this man didn't have the goo bugs, even Tan Jiao could instant kill this man. Your yellow goo. I captured it and I let it go. Of course it can bring me here. Yimo said plainly. Then, he raised his hand and let out a wind blade. Rensha looked dumbly as Yimo chopped off one of his arm without a sound. He didn't even feel any pain. He couldn't understand how someone could follow the goo bug. What speed would that be? But the moment his arm was chopped off, he reacted. He raised his hand and shot out a black ray. Then, he retreated a few meters back and rammed into the wall. This wall actually fell apart. After Rensha rammed into the wall, he disappeared in that extremely short time. Yimo didn't have time to check where Rensha went because in that instant, he felt danger. After Rensha rammed into the wall, he disappeared in that extremely short time. Yimo didn't have time to check where Rensha went because in that instant, he felt danger. That black ray exploded with the chi of destruction in front of Yimo. Yimo stood on the flying sword and rose to the sky without any hesitation. Rumble, almost at the same time, there was a loud explosion. That grandiloquent mansion turned into rubble. Yimo stood in mid-air looking at the rubble. He was shocked by this explosion. He didn't expect the Goo King to still have such a card. If he was just a bit slower, even if he wasn't blown to pieces, he would be heavily injured. Such a lethal mean. Yimo looked at the smoking mansion. No one inside could survive. This wasn't ancient martial arts mean nor cultivation mean. That black ray was definitely technological. Yimo was sure that even chi-gathering tertiary stage cultivator wouldn't be able to take that explosion easy. This thing was much stronger than a grenade. There was the sound of the firefighters. Yimo's face sunk. He knew that since this Goo King used such means, it meant that he didn't die at all. If he had to die, he didn't need to ram into the wall. If his sword didn't slice off one hand of his, perhaps Rensha would have escaped without any damage. The reason that Yimo didn't kill him immediately was that he wanted to pull the entire organization from its roots. He didn't want to just kill the Goo King. Since he came, he needed to kill them all. He just didn't expect the Goo King to still have such traps. Nevertheless, Yemo wouldn't be scared. He scanned out his spirit sense. Moments later, Yemo found a deep trench behind that wall. This trench was very deep and was well designed. Yemo estimated that it was about 100 meters deep. The mechanism was designed like this. Once the wall was rammed, the trench would appear. Once someone dropped down, a net would catch the person and release him to the bottom. Then, there would be a transport tool at the bottom. Although Yemo hadn't seen this tool, he was sure it must have been taken by the Goo King. Knowing Goo King's escape route, Yemo didn't go down there, however. He was thinking of a way in midair. He couldn't just go into the tunnel like that. This place was excavated by the Goo King. If he planted a few more of those bombs like that, he would be heavily injured even if he managed to survive. Thinking about this, just when Yemo wanted to leave, the fire brigade was here. Rumble. There was another loud bang, and not far from here, there was a huge explosion rupturing from the bottom of the ground, shaking over a nearby building. So vicious. Yemo looked at the explosion not far coldly. He wanted to kill this Goo King more desperately. If he followed up just then, he wouldn't be able to escape that explosion no matter what. It could be seen that this Goo King was really calculated. He could dig such a long tunnel underground. From this, it could be seen that not only was his wealth astonishing, but he was also deeply connected. Normally, who dared to dig such an underground tunnel in this busy city other than the government? But since this was exposed, perhaps another bunch of corrupt people would be pulled out. Yemo didn't care about this. He went invisible and took out another goo bug. He marked with spirit sense and let it out. Then, he followed up. Dozens of kilometers from the exploded mansion, in a private manner, Ruin Shah appeared from an underground elevator with a pale face. At this moment, he had lost an arm but felt lucky to be alive. The setup he had made many years ago finally came to use. If he didn't have an underground escape route, he would have been killed by Yemo now. Yemo, if I don't kill you, I swear I'm not a human, Ruin Shah said with full of killing intent. He didn't expect Yemo to be this scary. He couldn't resist at all under his hands. Although he had many means that he hadn't used, he didn't think he could beat Yemo. He didn't even think that last blast could kill Yemo. If Yemo died that easily, then he wouldn't be so hard to deal with. But it was best if he was killed by that blast. Even if it didn't, Ruin Shah estimated that Yemo would be injured at least. No matter how Yemo was, he wasn't going to let him go. After his hand recovered, he would teach Yemo a lesson that he would never forget. However, in the depth of his heart, he still hoped that Yemo followed him into the underground tunnel and was killed in the explosion. Goo King. Another man walked over and knelt down on one knee. His facial expression was very reverent. As for his broken arm, it was as though he didn't see it. Immediately prepare a helicopter. I need to leave here. Ruin Shah said coldly, yes. This man replied and quickly left. In a short while, there was the sound of a helicopter in the field. Yemo followed the goo bug, running around for a while before eventually coming to a private manor. Just when he came in, he saw a helicopter rise up. Yemo packed away the goo and followed the helicopter with his flying sword. The helicopter landed on an island in the southern sea. This island belonged to Ruin Shah. It was his place for cultivation and holiday. Now, it was for refuge. Ruin Shah walked off the helicopter. His broken arm had stopped bleeding. The medicine he used were all top grade. It's just that he was injured the most this time. This made him very angry. No matter if Yemo was killed, he wasn't going to give up his plan of massacre. Yemo, I swear here today that if I don't kill everyone around you, Ruin Shah didn't finish and was interrupted by a voice. What do you plan to do? Yemo's cold voice sounded by Ruin Shah's ear. Ruin Shah turned around and looked at Yemo, who suddenly appeared as though he was a ghost. He was completely frozen. Regardless of whether Yemo knew about this private island of his, even if he did, how could he come here this rapidly? He took a helicopter. Could he fly or something? Are you human or ghost? Yemo's sudden appearance exceeded Ruin Shah's understanding. He couldn't imagine a live person teleporting from Hong Kong to this island. Yemo sneered. Weren't you just making an oath to kill me? What? You're scared now that I'm here. I'm here for you to exact revenge. Rinsha's heart sunk into the bottom. He knew that Emo was really here. His power exceeded his comprehension. Although he didn't know how Emo came here, he knew that he had no chance now. How can you let me live? Whatever you say, I can do it. I'm willing to be your animal. Rinsha understood the situation and knelt down without hesitation. Usually, it was always other people kneeling down to him, but now, this was the first time that he knelt down to someone else to live. He was willing to do anything to live. He looked down and was desperate. He saw that behind Emo's back, his henchman had taken out an assault rifle from the helicopter and was about to shoot at Emo's back. At this moment, Rinsha's heart was beating rapidly, but he didn't dare to expose his thoughts. He just wanted his men to open fire quickly. Emo didn't even look and just threw out a fireball. Rumble, the helicopter, and the man aiming at him all erupted into flames rushing into the air. Rinsha saw the explosion a few meters away. The searing heat had burnt his hair, but his heart became cold again. Emo didn't seem to see the helicopter burning not far away. He wasn't affected at all and just looked at Rinsha plainly and said, "I would never let out a mad dog to bite again. If you don't die, I can't rest easy. To me, you're just an ant." Looking at Rinsha, who still knelt on the ground, Emo smiled. "If you tell me how to pull your organization from its roots, perhaps I will give you a quick death. I'll fight to the death with you." Rinsha suddenly rushed up, pulling a soft axe from his waist, and hacked towards Emo's lower dantian. Emo had seen soft whips and swords, but this was the first time seeing a soft axe. But Rinsha had lost an arm. No matter how quick he was, he wouldn't be able to reach Emo. Emo waved his hand, and the other arm of Rinsha fell to the ground. The axe was kicked back by Emo, and it happened to ram into Rinsha's leg and slicing it off like tofu. Emo took a step forward and slapped on Rinsha's head, yelling coldly, "Tell me, I want to kill all of Earth Fiend. What method do you have?" Rinsha showed struggle in his eyes, but it was just a moment before he was lost and murmured, "I have a goo king. If something happens to my goo king, all the goo bugs under me will attack their hosts and fly back." Rinsha showed struggle in his eyes, but it was just a moment before he was lost and murmured, "I have a goo king. If something happens to my goo king, all the goo bugs under me will attack their hosts and fly back." It was actually that simple? Emo once again saw the struggle in Rinsha's eyes and was amazed at his power. He quickly asked, "Are you the leader of the Earth Fiend organization?" "No, Earth Fiend was created by Shawan. After I came, I planted a goo in him, making him serve me." Rinsha replied very quickly this time. Emo didn't expect that this internationally renowned Earth Fiend was actually a puppet organization. In that case, he didn't have any reasons to hesitate. Emo took out a dark green ball from Rinsha. There was a goo bug lying there. The essence, blood, and life force on this goo bug was much stronger than those other ones Emo destroyed. Rinsha had also completely woken up. He saw Emo hold the goo king, and his face rapidly changed. He knew that he had no way out now, and his heart was full of resent. It had never occurred to him that someone he thought he could kill easily eventually killed him without even leaving him a chance to escape. The unwillingness in his eyes was deep. Emo suddenly thought of the He-Lu sect incident and asked, "Did you notify the hidden sects that I got the blood coral? How did you notify them?" As if knowing that he would still die anyways, Rinsha stopped saying anything but was secretly trying to shatter his aorta. Emo scanned his spirit sense and immediately knew what Rinsha was trying to do. He tried to save his soul by committing suicide. Emo didn't give it second thought before throwing out a fireball that surrounded Rinsha. Rinsha was stunned. He had already considered Emo to be the most dangerous person, but didn't expect that he could tell that he tried to protect his soul. Was Emo even human? "I won't let you go even if I'm a ghost." This was the last howl from the fire. Emo said coldly, "You won't have the chance to be a ghost, but now, you won't die yet. You can stay in that fire for a while." Finally, Rinsha's eyes showed that all hope was lost. If he had another chance, he would rather offend the entire hidden sects than Emo. His eyes gradually became dead. Emo looked at the goo king in his hand. If he was just going to kill it like that, he felt it was a waste. He knew that although this goo king was very low caliber in the cultivation realm, it was quite strong on earth. Although he felt it was a waste, Yitimo still enveloped the Goo King in a fireball. He knew that even if he kept it, he couldn't keep it alive. He had no clue as to how to keep Goo. The Goo King struggled in the dark green ball, but in the fire, its struggle was a waste. Half a minute later, it finally stopped struggling and was turned to ash with that dark green ball. At the same time, in dozens of places on Earth, those Earth fiend killers were all attacked by the goo bugs. In a very short time, they turned into bloodless bodies and the goo bugs disappeared into the skies. Yimo sat on the small island. Goo bugs kept flying back. Yimo knew this was because Ren Sha hadn't died yet. When it was daybreak, Yimo had burnt all the goo bugs. Looking at Ren Sha, who was on his last breath, he threw over another fireball, and this Ren Sha completely disappeared from the world. But when the goo bugs attacked the hosts, in an underground chamber in a temple in Hong Kong, a pale-faced man sat on the ground using his power to resist the devourer of the goo. He was the original head of the Earth Fiend, Shawan. Different to other people, he knew from the beginning that he was turned into a tool for cultivation for the Goo King. When the time was right, he would be consumed. But knowing was one thing, and avoiding it was another. He knew that if the Goo King didn't need him to serve, he would have been long gone. The moment that the Goo King's mansion was destroyed, he knew his chance had come. The Goo King always killed people, and now, he finally met his end. Shawan was waiting for this opportunity. The moment the mansion was destroyed, he brought his 2 men to the underground basement. Although Shawan was controlled by the goo bug, he used his connections and had much better information than Ren Sha. Ren Sha was very vengeful, ever since he came to the Earth Fiend. This organization was completely different from before. It had turned into a retribution machine. So, Shawan thought of all the ways he could to help the Earth Fiend find strong enemies, and this time, they messed with Yimo. Yimo was too young, and he didn't look well on Yimo, but after investigating Yimo, he became hopeful of Yimo. He hid Yimo's true capabilities from Ren Sha, just so Ren Sha could annoy Yimo. As expected, things developed as planned. Even Shawan didn't expect Yimo to act so fast. Yimo was in Chunnan in the morning, and at night, he had come to Hong Kong. Shawan brought 2 men into the underground basement. He knew that Ren Sha had an underground escape route. Even he didn't know how to get in. Just when he thought Yimo couldn't kill Ren Sha, the 2 men and him starting experiencing attacks by the goo bugs. This made Shawan very surprised and joyful. He knew that only when the Goo King was killed would such thing occur. So when the goo started the attack, Shawan also started his resistance. For the past decade, he had been constantly thinking of ways to resist the goo devouring. Finally, he thought of a way. Mutilation. He forced the goo into one arm and cut off that arm. Then, he quickly went into the metal room and closed the door. After eating the blood essence of that arm, the goo couldn't find Shawan and flew off with the other goo bugs. Although Shawan lost an arm, he forced out the goo bug and was very happy. He didn't dare to stay in the underground basement and quickly fled. The instant Su Jingwen packed away the charms, she remembered what happened when she came. She was too angered by her cousin, that's why she left. She thought about what happened with Yimo and her cousin and just remembered Yimo saying something about someone trying to assassinate her. Since those people were going to assassinate her, it meant that they wouldn't let Yimo go either. Then, what would happen to Yimo? But in the turn of an eye, Su Jingwen realized that she was too hysterical. If something was going to happen to Yimo, how could he come here and give her the fireball charms? Knowing Yimo's power, since he knew that there was someone trying to assassinate him, he would have a way to deal with it. Although she thought of this, Su Jingwen still felt a little guilty. She left before due to anger and didn't even care about Yimo's situation. She wondered if Yimo would come back. Su Jingwen sat in the car and waited for a long time but still didn't see Yimo. She started up the car disappointedly. At this moment, her mood was a little bad. It was because the cousin who had grown up with her become so rude, turning into someone she didn't even recognize. Was that still the cousin who helped her no matter what? She just couldn't put aside the words her cousin said today. Su Jingwen shook her head and tried to cast these things aside. She knew that no matter how Yimo handled the assassins, it wasn't suitable for her to stay outside. Thinking about this, Su Jingwen didn't hesitate to drive home. When Su Jingwen got home, she saw her cousin talk with her mother in the living room. Her face immediately changed. Seeing Su Jingwen come back, her mother Muan smiled and said, "Xiaowan, your cousin has been waiting for you a long time. He says he has business with you." Su Jingwen rubbed her forehead and said plainly, "Mom, I don't feel right today. I'm going to rest." Then, she didn't even look at Xiaowazian and just turned to leave. Muan looked strangely at her daughter. Although her daughter had always not really liked Xiaowazian, she had never behaved like this today. Although Muan wanted Su Jingwen and Xiaowazian to be together, she still respected her daughter's thoughts. "Jingwen, it's my fault today. I came to apologize. Please forgive me. I'm sorry." Xiaowazian saw this and stood up apologizing. His tone was very genuine and serious. "Xiaowan." Muan subconsciously thought it was her daughter being a little too grumpy. Even if Xiaowazian did something wrong, he came up here to apologize. What else can't they sort out? Su Jingwen looked coldly at Xiaowazian. "You pointed at me calling me a shameless woman. Why are you apologizing to me? Leave. I don't have you as a kin anymore. You don't need to say anything else, Xiaowazian. Go." Muan heard Su Jingwen's words, and her face also sunk. No matter what happened between the two, what right did Xiaowazian have to call her daughter shameless? Xiaowazian didn't expect Su Jingwen to actually say it out. He thought that what happened between them two couldn't be mentioned at home. But now, not only did she say it, she also said it in front of her mother. This caught Xiaowazian off guard. Xiaowazian didn't expect Su Jingwen to actually say it out. He thought that what happened between them two couldn't be mentioned at home. But now, not only did she say it, she also said it in front of her mother. This caught Xiaowazian off guard. However, Xiaowazian quickly reacted and walked over to Muan, bowing. "Auntie, it's because I saw Jingwen book a hotel room with another man. I was scared that Jingwen was inexperienced and tricked. I didn't choose my words carefully at the time because I cared about Jingwen too much." Su Jingwen's face was green with anger. She didn't think that Xiaowazian would twist the truth in such ways in front of her mother. It was obviously he who went into room with another woman, but now blamed it on her. Muan's heart sunk. Her first reaction was disbelief. She knew her daughter all too well. Now, Xiaowazian said her daughter booked a room with a man. How could she accept this? Just when Muan was going to reproach Xiaowazian, Su Jingwen said coldly, "Xiaowazian, who are you to me? I booked a room with the person I like. What's that got to do with you? I like it. I'm happy. Go now. Our family doesn't welcome you." Xiaowan. Muan looked at her daughter in shock. She didn't expect her daughter to admit it. Xiaowazian suddenly stood up straight and said in a calm tone, "Auntie, I really don't mind what Jingwen did from the bottom of my heart. I really like her. I just want to invite her out for a talk. Of course, if she doesn't agree, I will also respect her and give up these thoughts. Wei Zhang, you've been studying abroad and I don't see you being that devoted to Jingwen. How come this time?" Muan was still thinking about her daughter booking a hotel room with a man. But she also felt Xiaowazian wasn't right today. "Xiaowazian, I won't go out with you. If you have something you can say it here. If you don't, then you can go." Su Jingwen looked coldly at Xiaowazian. Her tone was freezing cold. Muan knew her daughter's personality. Since she said she won't go out for sure. But thinking about Xiaowazian, she said helplessly, "Xiaowan, how about you just have one more talk with Wei Zhang? If you guys can sort it out, then things go on. If not, then never mind." Before Su Jingwen could reply, Xiaowazian quickly bowed and said, "Yes, Auntie, I will explain things properly to Jingwen. If Jingwen really disagrees, I will also respect her wishes." Su Jingwen looked hesitantly at her mother. In the depth of her heart, she really didn't want to go out with Xiaowazian, but her mom also said this was the last time. Just when Su Jingwen was still hesitating, a maid brought in a disc and walked in front of Muan, passing the disc to her. "Aunt Un, someone just sent in this saying it needs to be watched immediately." Muan took the disc confusedly and casually put into the DVD player. When the TV screen showed, Xiaowazian's face changed drastically. He walked up a few steps and was going to take out the disc. Muin stopped him. Weijing, what are you doing? Xiao Weijing's face changed many times before saying, I'm a little uncomfortable. I'm going. Then, he didn't even care about Muin's strange eyes and turned to leave. Muin and Su Jingwen, who were very confused, quickly knew from the disc why Xiao Weizhang was leaving. This disc recorded the plan Xiao Weizhang had for Yimo and Su Jingwen. The more Muin watched, the angrier her face got. Xiao Weizhang was planning to capture Yimo and Su Jingwen and then get many people to rape Su Jingwen in front of Yimo. After this, they were still planning how to transfer Muin's assets. Slap. Muin slapped the tea table. What did I do to your Xie family? How dare you be like this? Mom. Su Jingwen quickly came to pat her mother on the back. She was scared her mom would get sick. Although she already knew what sort of a person Xiao Weizhang was, she was still in disbelief at his brutality. He was asking her out so he could rape her. After long, Muin calmed down and turned off the DVD player. She looked at her daughter and asked, Xiaowen, did you really? Su Jingwen shook her head. Mother, it was just a friend. I was in the room with my friend, and when we came out, we happened to see Xiao Weizhang with another woman. He was going to hit me, but my friend taught him a lesson. This bastard, Muin said, and then after a while, she continued to ask, Xiaowen, did your friend send this disc? Su Jingwen contemplated for a while and then said, I believe it is him, but he probably has something on so he didn't come. If you have time, get your friend to come sit for a while. You don't need to worry about Xiao Weizhang, but the Xie family is no small entity. You friend can even get this fast, meaning that he's not that simple either. You like him, right? Muin nodded and asked. She knew her daughter too well. If her daughter didn't like this person, then she wouldn't go into the same room with this person no matter what. Su Jingwen blushed and hesitated for a while before saying, Mom, he already has someone he likes. And it's not that I like him. I just don't have any vigilance for him. I feel he's trustworthy. He's a good person and... Muin smiled. You've said so many good things about him. How can you still say you don't like him? So what if he has someone he likes? As long as they're not married, anyone can like him. Plus, my daughter is no lesser than anyone else. What were you going to say before? Muin felt quite guilty to her daughter. If it wasn't for this disc, she was going to persuade her daughter to go out with Xiao Weizhang. You know one's face, but you don't know one's heart. Muin sighed. Xiao Weizhang only went out a few years and had turned so cruel, but you couldn't tell from his appearance at all. Su Jingwen could only say, Mom, he's Yimo, the one who cured your sickness and the one sold me the spirit-cleansing charm. It's him. Muin had long been wanting to see Yimo and didn't expect him to be in Ninghai. Xiao Weizhang walked out of the Su family with a bleak face. He really couldn't understand how his discussion in the afternoon turned into a disc this rapidly and was sent to the person he was plotting against. Xiao Weizhang opened the car door and sat in the car spitting coldly. Su, so what if you know? I will make you regret betraying me. What I can't get no one shall get. Pity, you no longer have that chance. A voice suddenly came from his back seat. Who is it? Xiao Weizhang turned around abruptly and saw a middle-aged man holding a gun at his head. This man sneered. You can go back and see your men in hell. Who I am is not important. The people in the business call me Ninth Uncle. You can call me that too. Oh, by the way, my previous occupation is a killer. Xiao Weizhang calmed down from his initial shock. He wasn't someone inexperienced. Soon, he realized that the disc was also sent by this Ninth Uncle. Ninth Uncle, we have no feud. Plus, aren't you killers doing your job for money? How much do you need? Name your price. Although Xiao Weizhang was shaking, he immediately realized what was the focal point. Ninth Uncle sneered. Drive your car first. After Xiao Weizhang started the car, the middle-aged man said coldly, No feud? You are attacking my boss's woman. Is that no feud? Yimo is my big boss, and Su Jingwen is my boss's woman. Tell me if we have feud or not. You only have yourself to blame. Xiao Weizhang opened his mouth. He didn't expect Yimo to be this powerful. In the turn of an eye, not only was his schemes known, and he became a prisoner to Yimo. Since this man was a killer, what else didn't he dare to do? Perhaps he would shoot his head the next moment. Now, Xiao Weizhang was really scared. Yemo killed Rinsha and destroyed all the goo bugs. Then, he spun around the island. This island was very small, less than 1 square kilometer. Rinsha didn't build any grandiloquent houses on it, just a few simple bases used for his cultivation. However, Yemo didn't know why Rinsha bought such a small island. Yemo felt a lot more relieved after annihilating the Earth Fiend. That constant feeling of threat had gone. Yemo walked into a room. This was probably used by Rinsha for cultivation. He wanted to see how this Rinsha cultivated. Just when Yemo walked in, he was shocked by the dense spirit chi here. Although this was still a far cry from the cultivation realm, it still surprised Yemo. When Yemo woke up again, he felt that the spirit chi here had dissipated. He then stood up with regret. He felt his power went up a level. Although he was still stage 4, he wouldn't be short on spirit chi if he flew from Ninghai to Hong Kong on the flying sword. When Yemo woke up again, he felt that the spirit chi here had dissipated. He then stood up with regret. He felt his power went up a level. Although he was still stage 4, he wouldn't be short on spirit chi if he flew from Ninghai to Hong Kong on the flying sword. Yemo felt hungry, and this shocked him. Normally, it would be fine if he didn't eat for 2 or 3 days, but now he was hungry, meaning that it had been at least more than 3 days. Thinking about the time he missed, Yemo got on the flying sword and headed straight for Ninghai. When Yemo came to Ninghai, he still saw Yangjiu and Han Zai guarding outside of Wei Xian. The two were already very desperate. Yemo said he would be back the 2nd day or that night. But now, it was the 4th day, and Yemo still hadn't come looking for them. Despite this, the two didn't leave Ninghai. Although he didn't know why Yemo hasn't come back yet, Yangjiu had the premonition that something happened to Earth Fiend. He knew about the strict rules in Earth Fiend. They hadn't reported back in a few days. If Earth Fiend was still fine, they would have come looking for them in Ninghai. Since they still hadn't come, it meant that something happened to Earth Fiend. This was the reason why Yangjiu and Han Zai still hadn't left. When Yemo came back, they saw him immediately and came up greeting him. After some talk, Yemo realized that he had been cultivating for 4 days. No wonder his stomach was hungry. Qinbei, I've dealt with that Xie guy. He wanted to scheme against you and Ms. Su Jingwen. We caught his evidence. We're wondering now if we should kill him? Yangjiu was very reverent to Yemo. He knew that Yemo went to annihilate the Earth Fiend, and now that he was back. Although he didn't dare to ask about the result, he had connections and found signs. Accompanied with his previous guesses, Yangjiu immediately knew that something really happened to the Earth Fiend. Yemo waved his hand. You two can deal with him. It's better if you can get some money out of him, but even if you can, don't let him live too easily. As for his life, it doesn't matter if it's taken or not. After this, you two immediately go to Flowing Snake and look for my second brother Su Ping. I have some people starting out a company for me at Flowing Snake. There will be places for you. After I deal with some things, I will also go to Flowing Snake. As for Earth Fiend, you don't need to worry about them. I have pulled them up from their roots. Yangjiu and Han Zai looked at Yemo in shock. He actually annihilated the Earth Fiend, pulling such a big hitman organization from its roots. This was only a few days. Yemo seemed more mysterious in their hearts now. After arranging the two, Yemo didn't go look for Su Jingwen. He went straight to Xinjiang. He still had a goal, and that was to go to the Helu sect. But Yemo was disappointed to find that the Xinjiang family didn't know about Zhang Zhihui at all. When he went to the family leader, only then did he know about Zhang Zhihui. However, the leader told Yemo that Zhang Zhihui hadn't met up with them nor contacted them for a long time. Yemo estimated. It was actually after he sent Zhang Zhihui to annihilate the Broken Fist Hall, there was no longer any news of Zhang Zhihui. Putting that aside, Yemo went to Wuliang Mountain. Since the Earth Fiend was gone, he needed to bring back his sister Tang Beiwei. Wuliang Mountain still looked the same with many tourists. Yemo came to the entrance of Serenity. On the platform, he realized that the chain to Serenity had gone. Someone cut the metal chains? Yemo was shocked. This definitely wouldn't be by Serenity because although the hidden sects didn't go into the world, they would still have connections to the outside world. They still had some necessities that they needed to trade. If his sister wasn't there, he wouldn't be so worried, but she was. Yemo immediately stood on the flying sword and came to the opposite side of the cliff. Soon, he went into the Serenity Valley. Coming out of the tunnel and at the end of the small road, it was the front door of Serenity. He scanned his spirit sense in. Tang Beiwei was looking after the blue flower blue leaf grass and seemed to be very focused. It was as though nothing could move her attention from it. Yemo breathed easy. Tang Beiwei was fine. Looking at where she lived, it seemed fine. Jing Xian didn't mistreat his sister. Yemo quickly went into the yard that his sister was in and called, Beiwei. Tang Beiwei turned around abruptly and saw Yemo. She dropped the spade in her hands without a thought and ran away, pulling Yemo's arm, and said with a face full of joy, "Brother, you're here?" Yemo patted her shoulder apologetically and didn't know how to say it to her. "What's wrong, brother?" Tang Beiwei felt Yemo's hesitation and asked desperately. She had a bad feeling in her heart. "Beiwei, sorry, brother went a little late, and your mother has already passed away." Yemo took out Tang Jing's ashes and passed it to Tang Beiwei. Although he knew this would only make her sad, he didn't know any other way to bring it to Tang Beiwei. Tang Beiwei let go of Yemo's hands and took the box in disbelief. She couldn't say anything for a long time. Although Tang Jing wasn't her real mother, in her heart, no one could take Tang Jing's place. Tang Jing was her mother, but her mother was taken to Beijing. How long had it been? And an ash box was brought back. She couldn't take it. She couldn't believe it. Her mother went to enjoy life, not die. Why did things have to be this way? Why? Tang Beiwei was frozen. Ever since she was young, her mother used her weak shoulders to bring her up to adult because nothing could stop the love a mother had for her daughter. Whether it was raining or windy, snow or hail, her mother always pushed that little cart sheltering her. But today, the daughter grew up. The mother still wasn't able to enjoy life yet, and left like that. "Mom." Tang Beiwei held the ash box in daze and cried out. She knelt down, tears raining down. Yemo looked at Tang Beiwei crying and didn't try to comfort her. She needed to cry out the sorrow in her heart now. After a long while, Tang Beiwei's voice was even sounding coarse. Then Yemo carried her up. "Beiwei, Ani had left. She definitely don't want to see you like this. Find a place and lay your mother to rest." Tang Beiwei sniffed and looked at Yemo before hugging him and crying again. Lucky she still had a brother. If she didn't have her brother and her mother died, then she wouldn't have anyone in this world. She would just be living alone in this world and lose the will to live. Outside Serenity, under a pine tree, Tang Beiwei piously buried her mother's ashes. She inscribed on the tombstone, "Sweet Mother Tang Jing's grave, erected by daughter Tang Beiwei." This was all done by Tang Beiwei. Yemo didn't intervene. After Tang Beiwei had done all that, Yemo went down on his knees and kowtowed a few times with Tang Beiwei. "Beiwei, come with me. I'll take you to my company." Yemo saw that Tang Beiwei was getting more and more morose, so he wanted to take her out and lighten up her mood. Tang Beiwei shook her head. "Brother, I don't want to leave yet. The people here are very nice to me, and I also like the life here. Mom just left. I still want to stay with her for a while." "Beiwei, you?" Yemo didn't expect Tang Beiwei's decision to stay in such an enclosed place. Tang Beiwei walked by Yemo's side and held onto his arm before saying slowly, "Brother, other than you, I have no other kin in this world. I know you're going out to find Luoing. I might as well wait for you here. After you find her, you can bring her to see me." Then, she stayed silent for a while before saying softly, "Brother, sometimes, I really hope I'm not your sister. If I'm not, I will marry you and go find Luoing with you." Tang Beiwei was very clear in her mind that even if she left with Yemo, she would still be living by herself. Yemo would be going out to find Luoing, and she was used to living here. Yemo rubbed Tang Beiwei's hair and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Let's go to where you stay first." "Brother, the blue flower blue leaf grass you gave me last time grew another flower." Tang Beiwei seemed to have recovered a little from the sadness. Yemo nodded and said, "Chim, I've seen it already. You've taken good care of it. Thank you, Beiwei." And Your cultivation is going well too. You have reached stage 1. You still need to work hard though. I will teach you properly this time before I go. Tang Beiwei shook her head, however, brother. I don't like you saying thank you to me. And I will work hard. Brother, by the way, how did you get in here? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.